You bastard." The words barely escape my lips, a ragged whisper laced with 4 years of love now curdled into pure, unadulterated hate. He just stands there, a ghost of a smirk playing on his lips, as he slowly raises a hand to his cheek, where the faint red imprint of my palm is already beginning to bloom. He doesn't even have the decency to look hurt. No, he looks amused. "2 slaps," he says, his voice as calm and cold as a frozen lake. "I guess that makes us even, doesn't it?" Even? The word hangs in the air between us, thick and poisonous. How could we ever be even? He straightens his designer tie, a tie I bought him for his first promotion, and looks down at me. Not at me, really, but through me, as if I were a piece of furniture he was finally getting rid of. "Let's be clear, Blair," he says, his voice dripping with a condescending pity that makes my stomach churn. "Look at yourself. Just look. I'm a department head now. My future is bright, wide open. How can I possibly be seen with someone so thoroughly ordinary? Ordinary." The word hits me harder than the slap ever could. My hands clench into fists at my sides, my nails digging into my palms. "That's right," he continues, his eyes scanning me from my simple flats to my unadorned hair, a look of profound disappointment on his face. "You refuse to change, to adapt. This whole rustic, simple girl thing you've got going on. It was cute in college. Now, it's just embarrassing. I'm ashamed to be seen with you." A bitter, broken laugh escapes my throat. "Ashamed? But you used to love that about me. You told me you loved that I was simple, that I was real." My voice cracks on the last word, a desperate plea for him to remember the man he used to be, the man who loved me. "That was then," he scoffs, waving a dismissive hand. "This is now. Things are different. I'm different. I've grown up, Blair. You haven't. I'm tired of it. I'm bored to death. It's over. 4 years, Albert. What were they to you?" I whisper, the question tearing from the deepest part of my soul. He pauses, feigning a moment of thought. "A youthful infatuation, I suppose. Nothing more." That's when I slapped him the first time, and the second, and now he stands there, wiping a tiny speck of blood from the corner of his mouth with his thumb. He smiles, a real smile this time, and it's the cruelest thing I've ever seen. "I hope you don't regret this, Albert," I say, my voice shaking but my gaze as sharp as shattered glass. "I won't," he promises. "Goodbye, Blair." And just like that, he turns and walks away. He doesn't look back, not once. For a long time, I just stand there, rooted to the spot on that cold, unforgiving sidewalk. The love I had so carefully nurtured for 4 years, the man I had trusted with every fiber of my being, had just plunged a knife straight into my heart. The tears finally come, hot and salty, tracing paths down my cold cheeks. My heart doesn't just feel broken, it feels shattered, pulverized into a million tiny pieces. 4 years, gone, just like that. Is this what happens when you trust a man? Is this the price of love? Wiping my eyes with the back of my hand, I force my legs to move. I walk back to the small apartment we were supposed to share, the one that now feels like a tomb. I collapse onto the bed, the scent of him still lingering on the pillows, and the memories come flooding back, unbidden and cruel. I remembered the first day I saw him, in the university's debate club. I was a nervous freshman, overwhelmed by the size of the campus, the noise, the sheer number of people. He was a senior, the club captain, tall and confident, with a smile that could light up a room. I was watching him, completely captivated, when he suddenly turned and our eyes met. My face flushed a deep crimson, and my heart did a frantic somersault in my chest. I quickly looked away, my pulse hammering in my ears. A few days later, he approached me. "Hey," he said, that easy smile back on his face. "You're new, right? Freshman?" I was so flustered I could barely speak. I just nodded, staring at my shoes. Yeah, hi. I'm Albert," he said, his voice warm. "Club captain. It's great to have you with us." "Blair," I managed to squeak out. "Blair," he repeated, testing the name on his tongue. "That's a beautiful name." "You're very pretty, Blair." My heart felt like it was going to burst. You're just saying that," he chuckled. "Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Listen, if you need anything at all, just let me know, okay?" "Okay, thank you," I mumbled. He walked away, and I just stood there, staring after him, completely lost in a daze. It wasn't until a loud, theatrical voice cut through my fog that I snapped out of it. "What are you staring at like a lovesick puppy?" It was Chloe, my best friend since kindergarten. "Nothing," I said, trying to act casual. "Where have you been?" She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Ugh, this place is so boring. If my parents weren't forcing me to be here, I'd be literally anywhere else." She sighed. "Hey, listen, I'm gonna try and convince my parents to let me get an off-campus apartment. It's just more convenient, you know. Wanna be my roommate?" My eyes lit up. "Seriously?" "Yeah, seriously," she said, a grin spreading across her face. "My parents would totally agree if they knew I was living with you. They think you're a saint." "Well, it's because I am a saint," I said, puffing out my chest playfully. "It's your parents I'm worried about, if they hear I'm moving in with you." "What?" she demanded, hands on her hips. "They might lock me in my room and throw away the key." Her face fell for a second before she realized I was joking. "Oh, shut up. You know my parents adore you. They practically think of you as their second daughter." She nudged me with her shoulder. "You scared me for a second there." We walked on, laughing and talking. Chloe was my polar opposite. She was bold, outspoken, and cared more about parties than grades. Her fashion sense was edgy and daring, while I was all about comfort and simplicity. But we fit together perfectly. The one thing we did have in common. People said we were both beautiful, just in different ways. I had the classic girl next door look, fair skin, big eyes, long straight hair, a natural, wholesome kind of beauty. Chloe, on the other hand, was sharp, striking, and undeniably seductive. She had a way of dressing and carrying herself that made heads turn wherever she went. We were the quiet beauty and the striking bombshell. Back in the present, the memory fades, leaving only the dull ache in my chest. I reach for my phone and dial her number. She picks up on the second ring. "Hey, you." Her cheerful voice comes through the speaker. "What's up? Where are you?" I ask, my voice thick with unshed tears. "Just grabbing some stuff. I'm on my way back." "Hey, what's wrong with your voice? Is everything okay?" Her tone shifts instantly from carefree to concerned, and that's all it takes. The dam breaks. I start sobbing, great, heaving sobs that rack my entire body. Blair, can you hear me?" "Okay, just stay calm. I'm coming home, right now." She hangs up, and I just cry. I cry like a child who has been told the world isn't a safe place anymore, because for me, right now, it isn't. 10 minutes later, the apartment door bursts open, and Chloe rushes in, her shopping bags dropping to the floor. She's by my side in an instant, her arms wrapping around me. Hey, what is it? What happened?" "Talk to me," she says, her voice soft as she strokes my hair. I pull back, my face a mess of tears and mascara. We broke up. What? You and Albert? No way. Why? I thought you guys were happy. He left me, I choke out. Just now. She pulls back, her expression hardening. He dumped you? Why? What was his reason? He said I was too plain, too much of a country girl, that I wasn't good enough for him now that he's a department head. He said I'm ordinary. Chloe's eyes flash with a fury that's almost terrifying. That son of a bitch. He dared to say that to you. She pauses, a thought occurring to her. Wait, Blair, did you ever tell him about your family? I shake my head. No, I was going to. I was planning on taking him home to meet my parents in a few weeks. Well, she says, a grim smile on her face. Then thank God you didn't. This just proves what a shallow, materialistic piece of trash he really is. You dodged a bullet, honey. A big one. It hurts so much, Chloe. I know it does. But listen to me. We're done with him. He doesn't deserve another one of your tears. So, what's the plan now? I think I'm going to go home. Back to my parents' house. They've been wanting me to move back in anyway. Good, she says, nodding decisively. Then that's what we'll do. We'll pack up your stuff, and you'll go home. And you are going to forget that bastard ever existed. He's not worthy of you, Blair. Not even close. I know. And hey, she says, her eyes gleaming with a new idea. Tomorrow, you and I have a date. I have a few places in mind. It's time for a little reinvention. Oh, yeah, she says, her voice full of wicked promise. We're going to make you so damn glamorous that when that asshole sees you again, his jaw will hit the floor so hard it shatters. Trust me, I'm an expert. A small, watery smile touches my lips. Despite the crushing pain, Chloe makes me feel a tiny flicker of hope. She's right. I can't let him destroy me. The years I spent loving him, dreaming of a future together, it was all a fantasy. He never saw me, not the real me. He saw a simple girl he could mold, and when she didn't fit his new, shiny life, he threw her away. The tears start again, but this time they feel different. They're not just tears of heartbreak. They're tears of anger, of resolve. Okay, I whisper, my voice still shaky. Okay, Chloe, let's do it. She hugs me tight. That's my girl. Cry it all out tonight. Because I swear to you, from tomorrow on, you are never, ever crying over that worthless piece of shit again. I nod into her shoulder, letting myself believe her. Just for tonight, I'll let myself fall apart. But tomorrow, I start putting myself back together, stronger, shinier, and completely unforgettable. Have you ever had a moment like that? A moment where everything you believed in shatters, and you know, deep in your soul, that you can either let the pieces cut you to ribbons, or you can pick them up and build something new, something breathtaking, from the wreckage. That was my moment, the beginning of everything. Chloe's words were a balm, but forgetting wasn't a switch you could just flip. Though I said I would, how could I erase 4 years in a single night? She left to give me space to pack, and in the quiet of the apartment, the memories were deafening. I remembered the day Albert got his first real job offer, the sheer, unadulterated joy on his face. My joy. I was so proud, so happy for him, for us. I truly believed he was working so hard to build a future for the two of us. The dreams we sketched out in late-night whispers, the promises he made, they were the blueprint of my life. A life with him, a cottage with a small garden, maybe a dog, 2 kids. He'd whisper these sweet nothings into my ear, words that felt like the most profound truths, and now they were all just ashes, a puff of smoke from a fire that had burned out without me even noticing. The tears started to fall again, silent and heavy, dripping onto the sweater I was folding. A soft knock came at the door. "Still alive in there?" Chloe's voice was gentle. She came in and saw my face. "Oh, honey, crying again?" She pulled me into another hug, and I sagged against her. "I'm sorry, Chloe. I can't believe it's real." "Shh, it's okay," she murmured, stroking my back. "Be strong. I'm here. And believe me, that piece of trash is going to regret this. I promise you." She pulled back, holding me by the shoulders and looking me straight in the eye. "Cry tonight. Cry until you have nothing left, because this is the last time. I will not allow you to waste another tear on that despicable man. Do you hear me?" "Yes," I whispered, my voice hoarse. Just tonight. And the very last time you cry for the man you loved," she added, her voice fierce. "Let this pain make you stronger. So strong that one day he'll see you living your life, laughing without him, and he'll know that your world didn't end. In fact, it had just begun." Her words were like a steel rod being inserted into my spine. She was right. I had to be strong. I had to be beautiful. I had to be successful. Who was I crying for? Would my tears bring him back? Would they restore the man I thought I loved? No, it was over. Everything was over. I wiped my eyes and stood up straight. "Okay, I'm okay now. Let's finish this." Chloe looked at me, a slow, proud smile spreading across her face. "Now you're talking. You think you're really okay?" "I am," I said, forcing a smile that felt wobbly and strange, like learning to walk again. "All right then, let's get this done. I'll call Arthur to come pick us up in a little while." "Thank you, Chloe, for everything." "Hey, what are best friends for?" she said with a wink. "Besides, I get to orchestrate your glow up. This is going to be fun." We packed the rest of my things, a strange mix of laughter and lingering sadness. Chloe, as always, knew exactly how to distract me, telling me outrageous stories from her classes, making fun of our professors, planning our epic reinvention day down to the last detail. She was a whirlwind of energy and light in my suffocating darkness. And for the first time in hours, I felt like I could breathe again. She never once left my side. Just as we were taping up the last box, a low, powerful rumble echoed from the street below. A brand new, gleaming black Ferrari was parked at the curb in front of our modest apartment building. A man in a crisp driver's uniform stepped out. Chloe and I looked at each other and smiled. "Arthur," we called out as he approached. He broke into a warm, familiar smile. "Miss Blair, Miss Chloe, it's been too long. You two have grown even more beautiful." "Oh, stop it, Arthur. You flatterer," Chloe laughed, batting her eyelashes playfully. "We're the same as always. Let me get those for you," he said, effortlessly lifting the heavy boxes. "Thank you, Arthur," we said in unison. We settled into the plush leather seats of the car, the scent of luxury, a stark contrast to the cheap air freshener in my old life. The drive was filled with light chatter, Arthur catching us up on the goings-on at home, Chloe continuing her mission to make me laugh. It was a comfortable bubble, a temporary reprieve from the gaping wound in my chest. The car eventually slowed, turning onto a long, tree-lined driveway that was hidden from the main road. It stopped before a pair of towering wrought iron gates that swung open silently, and there it was, my home. A sprawling, elegant mansion built in a classic European style. with ivy climbing its stone walls and perfectly manicured gardens stretching out on all sides. I stepped out of the car, took my suitcase, and said my goodbyes. Thanks again, Arthur. And Chloe. I'll see you tomorrow. You bet you will, she said, blowing me a kiss from the car window. Be ready. I stood for a moment, just looking at the house, my sanctuary. A small, genuine smile touched my lips. I walked up the stone path and pressed the bell. Less than a minute later, the heavy oak door swung open, and Maria, our housekeeper, gasped. Her face, lined with the gentle wrinkles of age and kindness, lit up with pure joy. Blair, oh my dear child, you're finally home, she cried, pulling me into a fierce, loving hug. I've missed you so much. I hugged her back just as tightly. I'm home now, Maria. I missed you too. Where are Mom and Dad? They're in the living room. Oh, they will be so thrilled to see you. Here, let me take your bags. It's okay, I've got it. Let's go in. Maria was more than just a housekeeper. She'd been with our family for over 20 years. She'd practically raised me, tending to my scraped knees and broken hearts since I was a little girl. She was family. I didn't even make it to the living room doorway before my voice, bright and clear, echoed through the house. Mom, Dad, I heard muffled sounds, then my mother's voice, tinged with disbelief. Darling, was that? Did you hear that? It sounded like Blair. At this hour? Surely not. My father's deeper voice replied. She would have called. Let me go see. They both stood up just as I walked in. Mom, Dad, I'm home. My mother's face broke into the most beautiful smile, her eyes instantly filling with tears. She opened her arms wide, and I ran into them, burying my face in her shoulder as she kissed my hair, my cheeks, my forehead. My father stood beside her, his expression soft and full of love. After my mother finally released me, I turned to him. Hi, Daddy. I stood on my toes and gave him a loud kiss on the cheek. My girl, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You finally decided to come home. Let me look at you. He held me at arm's length. Just a few months, and you're even more radiant. Motherhood agrees with you. Oh wait, that's not it, he teased. Dad, I laughed, swatting his arm. I'm still the same. What's all this about, sweetheart? My mother asked, her hand gently stroking my cheek. You never come home without telling us. I missed you, I said simply, my voice catching a little, and I was craving Mom's cooking. So, I decided to move back home. For good. Their faces lit up. For good. Are you serious? My mother asked, her eyes wide with hope. I am. I'm coming home to live with my parents. If you'll still have me, have you? My father boomed, his laugh filling the room. We'd have you for a lifetime, my darling. They were so happy, their joy so pure and unconditional, that it almost made me cry again. Go on up to your room, sweetheart, my mother said. Get freshened up. Dinner will be ready soon. It's been too long since we all ate together. I nodded, my heart feeling lighter than it had all day. I went up the grand staircase to my room. It was exactly as I had left it. Even though I'd been away at college and living in that small apartment, the room was spotless, every object in its place. I could smell the faint scent of my mother's lavender potpourri. I knew she and Maria came in here often, keeping it perfect for me, waiting for me to come home. I stripped off my clothes and ran a hot bath, pouring in a generous amount of fragrant oils. Sinking into the steaming water, I let out a long, shuddering breath. The warmth seeped into my bones, easing the tension that had been coiled in my muscles all day. It felt like I was washing away the grime of the past 4 years, scrubbing away his touch, his words, his memory. After, I chose a simple, white sundress from my closet and went downstairs. The house was filled with the delicious aroma of my mother's cooking. The three of us sat around the dinner table, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt completely, utterly safe. I felt home. After dinner, I excused myself, claiming exhaustion from the move. My bed, with its soft, high thread count sheets and plush duvet, felt like a cloud. I was asleep almost the moment my head hit the pillow. A deep, dreamless sleep that was a mercy in itself. But mercy, it seems, has its limits. Wake up, sleeping beauty. The world isn't going to conquer itself. I was ripped from my blissful slumber by a shriek that could shatter glass. I groaned, cracking open an eyelid. Chloe was standing in the middle of my room, already dressed in a ridiculously chic outfit, her hands on her hips, tapping an impatient foot. "Chloe, what time is it?" I mumbled, burrowing deeper under the covers. "It's barely sunrise. It's time to build an empire, my friend. Or, at the very least, get you a killer new wardrobe. Did you forget our date?" "Our date?" I asked, my brain still foggy with sleep. The reinvention, the transformation, the Make Albert Eat His Heart Out tour. "Ringing any bells?" she said, exasperated. Then it came back to me. "Oh, right, that," I sighed. "Sorry, I forgot." "Well, I didn't. Now get your butt out of that bed." Chop chop. I dragged myself out of bed and into the shower, the hot water slowly waking me up. When I emerged, dressed in my usual jeans and a t-shirt, Chloe took one look at me and shook her head in mock despair. "Oh, no, 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 that will not do." She rummaged through my closet, pulling out pieces I hadn't worn in years. Finally, she settled on something and threw it at me. "Put this on. We're going out." Downstairs, I poked my head into the kitchen, where my mother was having her morning coffee. "Morning, Mom. I'm heading out with Chloe for a bit." "Oh, have some breakfast first, dear," she said, gesturing to the spread on the table. "It's okay, we'll grab something on the way." "Bye, Mom." "Bye, Dad," I called out. "Be careful, you two." My dad's voice echoed from his study. The day was a whirlwind, a glorious, exhausting, transformative whirlwind. Chloe dragged me from one high-end boutique to another, then to the most exclusive salon in the city. I was poked, prodded, styled, and dressed by a small army of experts under Chloe's exacting direction. Hours later, I stood in front of a full-length mirror, and for the first time in my life, I was truly speechless. The woman staring back at me was me, but a version of me I had never seen before. My long, straight hair was now styled in soft, glamorous waves, with subtle highlights that caught the light. My makeup was flawless, enhancing my features without hiding them. And the dress, a simple, elegant piece that hugged my curves in all the right places. I looked sophisticated, powerful, beautiful. Chloe stood behind me, a proud, triumphant grin on her face. "See? I told you. If I'd known you could look this stunning, I would have staged this intervention years ago." "You're exaggerating," I said, but there was no conviction in my voice. I couldn't stop looking at my reflection. "I am not. You are a goddess. Now, let's go home before I decide to keep you for myself." Okay, I laughed. "But you know, you're going to have to treat me to dinner for all this." "Done," she said without hesitation. A small price to pay for unleashing this masterpiece upon the world. When we arrived back home, Chloe dropped me off at the gate. "I'll just head home and take a shower," she said. "I'm exhausted from being so brilliant all day." "Okay," I laughed. "See you later." "And Chloe, thank you." "Anytime, bestie. Bye." I walked into the house, my shopping bags rustling. My parents were in the living room, watching a movie. I tiptoed over to the sofa, wanting to surprise them. "Mom, Dad, I'm home," I said softly. They turned, their eyes leaving the screen, and then they just stared. For a full 10 seconds, there was absolute silence as their eyes widened in disbelief. It was my father who spoke first, his voice filled with awe. "Blair, is that really you?" I smiled. "It's me, Dad." "My goodness, sweetheart," my mother breathed, standing up to get a better look. You look absolutely breathtaking. We almost didn't recognize you." My father chuckled. "Are you sure this is my daughter? She looks like a movie star." "Oh, Dad, stop," I said, blushing. "You think I look ugly?" "Ugly? No, my love," he said, his eyes twinkling. "You look incredibly beautiful. Your mother and I are just, well, we're thrilled to see you taking care of yourself, finding your own style." The three of us sat together, laughing and talking, their pride and happiness washing over me like a warm wave. For the first time since the breakup, I didn't think about Albert once. Later that evening, as we were watching TV, my father turned to me. "Sweetheart, are you busy tomorrow night?" "No, I don't think so." "Why?" "Good. I'd like you to come with me to a business gala, a new company launch." "Me?" I asked, surprised. "Why don't you take Mom? Your mother has an important meeting with a client she can't reschedule," he explained. "So, I was hoping my beautiful daughter would do me the honor." "Okay, Dad," I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. "I'd love to." The next day was spent in meticulous preparation. This wasn't just any party. It was a major event in the business world, and I was determined to make an impression. It's funny, isn't it? I was the daughter of one of the wealthiest, most influential families in the country, yet I had never once attended one of these lavish events. I'd always told myself they weren't for me, that I wouldn't fit in. But the truth was, I had been hiding behind my simple persona, afraid to step into the world I was born into. My family's wealth wasn't just substantial, it was astronomical. My father was the chairman of TH Group, a titan in the construction industry. My mother was a celebrated interior designer, one of the best in her field. As their only child, the sole heir to their empire, my inheritance was estimated in the billions. But my parents had always been fiercely protective of my privacy. I had been shielded from the media my entire life. To the press, the heiress of TH Group was a ghost, an enigma. They knew my name and my age, and that was it. Tonight, that was all about to change. I chose a stunning white, off-the-shoulder gown, intricately beaded and utterly elegant. I had my hair and makeup done professionally, styled into a sophisticated updo with a few loose tendrils framing my face. When I looked in the mirror, even I was taken aback. The transformation was complete. I wasn't just Blair anymore. I was Blair, heiress to the TH Group. Putting on a pair of sky-high heels, I took a deep breath and walked downstairs. My parents were waiting, and the look on their faces was a mixture of pride, love, and pure astonishment. I said goodbye to my mother, took my father's arm, and we walked out to the waiting car. The venue was a magnificent 5-star hotel, glittering with lights and swarming with the city's elite. As the driver opened the door, I could feel the buzz of the crowd, the flash of cameras. I knew this was it, the moment of my debut. Taking my father's arm, I stepped out of the car and onto the red carpet. And as we walked into the grand ballroom, a ripple of whispers and murmurs followed us. Everyone knew my father, the legendary Tran Hung of TH Group, but the young woman on his arm, a woman of breathtaking beauty and poise. She was a mystery. Young heirs and scions stared, completely captivated. The daughters of other prominent families shot me, looks of envy and curiosity. I could feel their eyes on me, trying to place me, to figure out who I was. It was intoxicating. My father led me through the crowd towards a man of about his age. He looked vaguely familiar, but I couldn't quite place him. Before I could ask, my father spoke. "Well, hello there, old friend. It's been too long." The man turned, and his face broke into a wide, warm smile. He embraced my father. "Hung, I'm so glad you could make it. Thank you for coming to my company's launch party." "Of course, I had to come and congratulate you, Tuan," my father said. Then he turned to me. The man's eyes widened in admiration. "And this beautiful young lady, can this be little Blair?" I stepped forward gracefully. "Hello, Uncle Tuan. It's a pleasure to see you again." "Blair, my dear, you are absolutely stunning," he said, his voice full of genuine warmth. My, how you've grown." "You're too kind, Uncle," I replied with a polite smile. I looked at my father, my eyes asking the question my lips didn't. He understood immediately. "Blair, you remember Uncle Tuan, don't you? He used to live next door to us, years ago. You were always running over to his house to play." And then it clicked. The vague familiarity sharpened into a clear memory. Uncle Tuan. From next door? Of course. Your family moved abroad, didn't you? You just returned recently. He beamed, pleased that I remembered. "That's right. So, you do remember us." A mischievous twinkle appeared in his eye. "But do you only remember your Aunt Hoa and me? There was someone else. Someone very important. You seem to be forgetting." I racked my brain, a sense of unease starting to creep in. "Someone else? Who?" Seeing my confusion, my father stepped in. "Don't you remember Uncle Tuan's son, sweetheart?" I thought for a long, hard moment, and then the name surfaced from the depths of my memory, and my face went pale. A cold dread washed over me. "Oh, him," I whispered, my voice barely audible. My pleasant evening had just taken a very dark turn. The past I had tried so hard to bury was about to walk right back into my life. "Oh, him," I whispered, the name catching in my throat like a shard of glass. I had forgotten, truly, blissfully forgotten. How could I have forgotten the one person who had been the tormentor of my childhood? Uncle Tuan saw the look on my face, the sudden fear in my eyes, and he chuckled. "Ah, so you do remember. I was beginning to think you'd forgotten your old playmate." Playmate was not the word I would have used. Nemesis, bully, or the reason I needed therapy at age 10 felt more appropriate. His name was Nathan, and I hated him. My father, sensing my distress, gently squeezed my arm. "It's all right, sweetheart. That was a long time ago. I'm sure he's grown up now. He doesn't torment you anymore." But the memories were already flooding back, vivid and horrifying. I was 10 years old, a little on the chubby side, with a gap-toothed smile. Nathan, who was 4 years older, lived next door. Our parents were the best of friends, and for some inexplicable reason, I had a massive crush on him. I adored him. I followed him around like a lost puppy, despite his very clear, very loud warnings to stay away. He, in turn, despised me. He pushed me down once, and I cut my hand open on a piece of gravel. I still have the tiny faded scar on my palm, but that was nothing compared to the incident, the one that was seared into my brain forever. One afternoon, he was surprisingly nice to me. He didn't tell me to get lost. He actually invited me to play in his backyard. I was ecstatic, my little 10-year-old heart soaring. We were playing hide and seek, and after a while, I started to feel itchy, a strange, prickling sensation all over my body. It got worse and worse, until it was unbearable. I was scratching myself raw. I took off my little jacket, and that's when I saw them. The inside of my jacket was teeming with caterpillars. Dozens of them, hairy and writhing, were crawling all over my shirt, in my hair. They fell to the ground around my feet. I screamed, a raw, terrified scream that tore from my throat. I looked over at Nathan, and he was just standing there, laughing at my terror. Only stupid fat girls would play with you, he sneered. This is your final warning. Stay away from me. My body was on fire. I was covered in an angry, red rash. I ran, sobbing, back to my house, but I didn't even make it to the door. I collapsed on the lawn, the world going black. I woke up in a hospital bed, my parents by my side, their faces etched with worry. When they saw I was awake, my mother burst into tears. Seeing them so upset made me cry too, and I told them everything. I swore I would never, ever go to that house again. I would never forgive that horrible, cruel boy. I heard later that Uncle Tuan had given Nathan the punishment of a lifetime, but the damage was done. For months afterward, I was plagued by nightmares. I had a phobia of insects, a deep-seated terror that made me jump at every rustle of leaves. I became withdrawn, refusing to play outside. The memory alone was enough to make my skin crawl. Even now, all these years later, and Uncle Tuan was standing here, smiling, telling me his monstrous son was on his way. In fact, he said, peering towards the entrance, I think he'll be here any minute. I'll introduce you two again. Introduce us? I squeaked, my voice an octave higher than normal. My heart was hammering against my ribs. He's coming. Here, my father saw the panic on my face. Sweetheart, are you all right? He asked softly. Dad, I whispered, turning to him, my eyes wide with desperation. I don't feel well. I think I need to go home. All right, darling, he said immediately, his expression full of concern. If you're not feeling well, you should go rest. I'll apologize to Uncle Tuan for you. Thank you, Daddy, I said, my voice trembling with relief. I'm so sorry. I turned and practically fled, weaving through the glittering crowd, not caring who I bumped into. I just had to get out of there. The image of his laughing face was burned into my mind. I was almost at the exit, gasping for breath when I saw him. The man walking in was not the boy I remembered, but there was no mistaking him. The same dark hair, the same arrogant set of his shoulders. But now, he was tall, broad-shouldered, and devastatingly handsome, in a perfectly tailored suit. And walking right beside him, clinging to his arm, was Albert, my ex, the man who had shattered my heart just a few days ago. He saw me at the same instant. His jaw literally dropped, his eyes widened, raking over me from head to toe, a look of utter, dumbfounded shock on his face. He blinked, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He took a step towards me, a slow, hesitant step. Blair, is that you? His voice was a strange mix of disbelief and something else. Awe? Regret? I didn't give him the chance to say another word. I gave him a look of pure, icy disdain, a look that said, "You are nothing to me." Then I turned on my heel and walked away. My head held high, I reached the foyer, my heart pounding, a strange, triumphant fire coursing through my veins. Thank God I didn't run into that other monster, I thought, my relief palpable. As I waited for Arthur to bring the car around, another figure emerged from the ballroom. It was Albert, his face a mask of confusion and urgency. Blair, he called out, striding towards me. What are you doing here? Are you following me? I let out a short, sharp laugh. It was a sound full of scorn. Following you? Albert, please, do you really think you're that important? His face flushed with anger, but he quickly regained his composure, his expression turning smug. All right, then. What is a girl like you doing in a place like this? Did you sneak in? You want to know who I am? I asked, my voice dangerously sweet. Fine, I'll tell you. The woman you so callously threw away is the sole heir to the TH group. His smirk vanished. What? You're yoking. Am I? I said, raising an eyebrow. Just then, Arthur pulled up in the Ferrari. He got out and opened the passenger door for me. Miss Blair, he said, his voice respectful. Your father said to take you home. Thank you, Arthur, I said, giving Albert one last, withering look. I slid into the car, the door clicking shut behind me, leaving him standing on the curb, utterly gobsmacked. As the car pulled away, I saw him in the rearview mirror, just standing there, a statue of disbelief and dawning horror. It was only then that he seemed to process what had just happened. He looked stunned, as if he'd been struck by lightning, and in that moment, I knew he would try to find out if it was true. And when he did, he would realize he had made the biggest, most idiotic mistake of his life. Inside the party, Nathan, or Nam, as he was now called, was making his way through the crowd, effortlessly charming everyone he met. Dressed in a sleek black suit, he exuded an aura of power and confidence. He was the son of Tuan, the CEO of Star Fashion, a global brand based in New York. They had returned to the country to expand their empire, and tonight was the grand launch. He finally reached his father. Dad, I'm here. Nam, my boy, you made it, Tuan said, clapping him on the shoulder. He introduced him to the surrounding business leaders, who were all effusive in their praise. At only 28, Nam was already managing a massive corporation, a feat that commanded respect. Suddenly, his eyes landed on my father. A flicker of recognition crossed his handsome face. Mr. Hung? He asked, his voice polite. Is that you? My father turned and a broad smile lit up his face. Nam, look at you, all grown up. I almost didn't recognize you. I thought you'd have forgotten an old man like me. Never. Sir, Nam said with a charming smile. You look as distinguished as ever. How is your family? We're all well. Thank you, son. And yours? As they chatted, Uncle Tuan had an idea. Hey, why don't we all get together soon? A proper reunion for our two families. It's been too long. A wonderful idea, my father agreed. How about this Sunday? We can all have dinner at our place. Perfect, Tuan said. It's a date. The party eventually wound down. My father said his goodbyes and left. On the ride home, Tuan turned to his son. You're free on Sunday, aren't you? I'm not sure, Dad. I'll have to check my schedule. I'll try to make it. Nam, his father said, a thoughtful expression on his face. Do you remember Blair, Mr. Hung's daughter? Nam paused for a moment, thinking. The little girl who used to follow me around all the time. That's the one, Tuan said with a chuckle. I wonder if she's still angry with you after all these years. I guess I'll have to find out for myself, Nam said, a slow smile spreading across his face. In that case, Dad, I will definitely be there on Sunday. That's my boy, Tuan said, clapping him on the back again. Back in his own apartment, Nam collapsed onto his bed. The new company launch meant a mountain of work, and he was exhausted. But as he lay there, his thoughts drifted to the little girl he used to hate. A strange sense of anticipation filled him. He remembered the guilt he'd felt after she was hospitalized. He'd been so ashamed of what he'd done, but he'd never had the chance to apologize before his family moved to the US. This time, he would make it right. He had to. He had to see her again. He drifted off to sleep, the image of a little girl with big, accusing eyes in his mind. Sunday arrived far too quickly. I was in my studio, a bright, airy room at the top of the house, sketching some designs. It was a passion I'd nurtured since I was a child, the one place I could lose myself completely. I was planning to enter a design competition for a new fashion company, a chance to prove to myself and to the world that I was more than just an heiress. I wanted to build something of my own. A soft knock came at the door. "Blair, honey, can I come in?" "Of course, Mom," I called out, not looking up from my sketchbook. She came in and sat on the edge of my chaise lounge. "What are you working on so intently?" "Just some ideas for a competition," I said. "This new company, Star Fashion, is looking for designers. I thought I'd give it a shot. I've graduated after all. It's time to get a job." "Oh, darling, that's wonderful," she said, her voice warm with pride. "But don't push yourself too hard. You know, if it doesn't work out, there's always a place for you at your father's company." "I know, Mom, and I appreciate that, but I want to try this first." I smiled at her. "So, what's up? You look like you have something on your mind." "Ah, yes," she said, her expression turning slightly hesitant. "Uncle Tuan's family is coming over for dinner tonight, so I need you to get ready and come downstairs to join us." My hand froze, the charcoal pencil hovering over the paper. "Tonight?" "Yes, tonight." "What's wrong, dear? You look so surprised." "Mom, is it just Uncle Tuan and Aunt Hoa? Or is anyone else coming with them?" "Well, their whole family, of course," she said cheerfully. "I believe their son is coming too." "Their son," I repeated, my voice flat. "Yes, Nam. You remember him, don't you? The boy you used to love playing with when you were little." "Love playing with," I muttered under my breath. That's one way to put it. The thought of seeing him, of having to sit at the same table and make polite conversation, filled me with a cold, sickening dread. "Mom, I don't want to see him." "Blair, darling," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "That was so long ago. You're both adults now. It's time to let it go, don't you think?" "But, Mom..." "No buts," she said, standing up. "They'll be here soon. Please get dressed and come downstairs." She left, closing the door softly behind her, leaving me alone with my rising panic. I immediately grabbed my phone and dialed Chloe. "Hello, Chloe, code red. I need your help, right now." "Whoa, slow down. What's wrong?" I quickly explained the situation, my voice a frantic whisper. "He's coming here, Chloe, to my house, for dinner." "What am I going to do?" There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then I heard her say, Okay, don't panic. I have a plan. Just do exactly as I say." A few minutes later, I flew down the stairs, my face a mask of carefully constructed panic. "Mom, Dad," I cried, my voice trembling. They both rushed out of the living room, their expressions alarmed. "Blair, what is it? What's wrong?" It's Chloe," I gasped, clutching my chest for dramatic effect. She was in an accident. On her scooter. I have to go to her." "An accident?" my mother said, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my goodness. Is she all right? Is it serious?" "I don't know," I wailed. "I have to go see. Please, Dad, you have to apologize to Uncle Tuan for me. I'm so sorry." "Of course, darling, of course," he said, already ushering me towards the door. "Don't worry about us. Go be with your friend, and call us if you need anything." "I will. Bye, Mom, bye, Dad." I ran out the door, not daring to look back. and hailed the first taxi I saw, directing it straight to Chloe's apartment. I had just escaped. I hadn't been gone for more than 10 minutes when the doorbell rang. Tuan's family had arrived. The two families greeted each other with warm hugs and laughter, reminiscing about old times when they were all settled in the living room. Nam's eyes scanned the room, a subtle look of disappointment crossing his face when he didn't see who he was looking for. His father noticed. "Where's Blair?" he asked my parents. I was so looking forward to seeing her again. "Oh, I'm so sorry," my mother said, her face full of genuine regret. Her best friend was just in an accident, so she had to rush off to be with her. She sends her deepest apologies. "Oh, not at all," Tuan said graciously. "Family and friends come first. We can see her another time." They all sat down to a lavish dinner, my parents heaping praise on Nam for his accomplishments. He was polite and charming, engaging in conversation, but his mind was elsewhere. After the meal, my mother brought out an old photo album, filled with pictures of our two families from years ago. They all laughed at the outdated clothes and hairstyles. Nam's mother flipped to a page with a picture of a little boy and a chubby little girl. "Oh, look at you two," she said, smiling fondly. "Who would have thought you'd both be so grown up now?" Nam took the album, his gaze falling on the picture of the gap-toothed little girl. A faint smile touched his lips. "I wonder what that ugly, scrawny little girl looks like now," he thought to himself. His mother turned the page, and a newer photo slipped out. It was my graduation picture. She picked it up, her eyes widening. "Oh my goodness, she's so beautiful," she breathed. "Nam, look at this." She handed the photo to him. He took it, and his eyes froze. He stared at the girl in the picture, her face radiant in her cap and gown, a sweet, charming smile on her lips. His breath hitched. He knew that face. He had seen that girl before. It took him a moment, but then it hit him. "It's her," he whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. "You've met her, Nam?" his father asked, surprised. "No, not really," he said, his eyes still glued to the photo. I saw her at the party the other night." My father smiled knowingly. "Yes, she was there, but I think she left when she heard you were coming. Seems she hasn't quite forgiven you yet." Nam's expression fell. He looked down at the picture in his hand, his thumb gently tracing the outline of my face. He turned to my mother. "Auntie Lien, may I keep this picture?" "Of course, dear," she said with a warm smile. "You go ahead." "Thank you," he said, his voice soft. Later, back in his study, he leaned back in his chair, the photo held loosely in his hands. He smiled to himself. "So, you're the little girl, huh? You've grown up to be quite beautiful." A strange, unfamiliar feeling stirred in his chest. "You must really hate me." His heart gave a strange, unexpected lurch. "Don't worry," he thought, his gaze softening. "We'll be seeing each other again, very soon." I, on the other hand, returned home late that night, exhausted from my day of caring for my injured friend. As I was paying the taxi driver, I saw a figure lurking in the shadows near my gate, a familiar, unwelcome figure. Albert, I ignored him, walking straight past as if he were invisible, but he reached out and grabbed my arm. "Let go of me," I snapped, trying to pull away. "What are you doing here?" "Blair, we need to talk," he pleaded, his grip tightening. "Just for a minute. We have nothing to talk about." "Please, Blair," he said, his voice desperate. "Just listen to me. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please, forgive me. Let's start over." His words made me feel sick. I stared at him, at this man I had loved for 4 years, and I felt nothing but disgust. I wrenched my arm from his grasp. "Start over? I said, my voice dripping with ice. Do you honestly think you're worthy of a second chance? Forget it, Albert. Blair, please, I'm begging you. I was an idiot. Stop, I said, my voice rising. I don't want to hear your pathetic excuses. Go home, but I truly want to get back together with you, Blair. I mean it. You mean it? I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. That's hilarious. I took a step closer, my eyes boring into his. Get out of my sight, and stay out of my life. Life is funny, isn't it? The things you think you see are not always what they seem. You changed, Albert, and now you regret it. But that's the thing about life. You don't always get what you want. The love you treated like a game, the love you threw away. You think you can just come back and pick it up? Not a chance. Go, I said, my voice low and final. I turned, opened the gate, and walked into my house without a single backward glance. I won't give up, he yelled after me, his voice cracking. You will be mine, Blair. You'll see. I just kept walking. Inside, I greeted my parents and went straight up to my room. I was tired. So incredibly tired. I fell onto my bed and was asleep in seconds. The drama of the day finally catching up to me. The next morning, I woke up feeling refreshed and determined. Today was the day I was going to submit my designs. I finished the final touches on my portfolio, my heart filled with a nervous excitement. This was my first step into the real world, my first attempt to build a life for myself, by myself, and nothing, and no one, was going to stop me. The taxi pulled up in front of a gleaming modern skyscraper with the name Star emblazoned in silver letters across the glass facade. From what I'd researched, this was a newly established subsidiary, but the building itself screamed of money and power. Star Fashion was a giant in the industry, and their selection process for designers was notoriously rigorous. Most of their hires had years of experience. I, a fresh graduate, felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. I stood on the sidewalk for a long moment, clutching my portfolio to my chest, my confidence wavering. What am I doing here? I don't stand a chance. Then another voice, a stronger, more defiant one, rose up from within. So what? The worst they can do is say no. And if they do, I'll go work for Dad. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the heavy glass doors open and stepped into the lobby. It was vast and minimalist, all white marble and brushed steel. I approached the chic receptionist at the front desk. "Hi," I said, my voice a little shakier than I would have liked. "I'm here to submit my portfolio for the design competition." The receptionist gave me a polite, professional smile. "Of course. You'll need to go to the second floor. Turn right, and you'll find the recruitment office. Someone there will accept your submission." She handed me a visitor's pass. "All entries will be reviewed by the board of directors. If your portfolio is selected, the company will contact you by phone." "Okay, great. Thank you so much," I said, taking the pass. I followed her directions, my heels clicking softly on the polished floor. The recruitment office was just as sleek and modern as the rest of the building. I handed over my portfolio, filled out a form, and just like that, it was done. A sense of relief washed over me. I had done it. I had put myself out there. Now, all I could do was wait. As I was heading back towards the elevators, my phone rang. It was Chloe. "Hey, you," I answered. "What's up? Where are you? I stopped by your house, and you were gone." "I'm just out, running some errands. Applying for a job, actually." "What, a job? Where?" "Star Fashion." "Star? Seriously? You think you can get in there? They're like the major leagues." "Probably not," I admitted, but I figured it was worth a shot. I put my heart and soul into these designs. If they don't pick me, it's their loss. That's the spirit. She cheered. I believe in you. Hey, are you heading home now? Let's meet up. I'm starving. On my way. You're buying. You got it. Hurry up. I'm wasting away over here. I laughed and hung up, my spirits lifted. I was so focused on getting out of the building and meeting Chloe that I wasn't watching where I was going. I rounded a corner at a brisk pace, my head down as I shoved my phone into my purse and slammed right into a solid wall of a man. The impact sent me stumbling backward, my portfolio flying from my hands, scattering sketches across the floor. My phone, which I hadn't yet secured in my bag, clattered to the ground, the screen shattering into a spiderweb of cracks. Oh my God, I am so sorry, I gasped, scrambling to gather my scattered papers. Are you okay? I'm fine, a deep, controlled voice replied. But you should probably watch where you're going next time. I looked up to apologize again, and the words died in my throat. Standing before me, looking down with an expression of mild annoyance, was the man from the party, the tormentor of my childhood, Nathan. He was even more handsome up close, in a sharp, intimidating kind of way. My heart did a nervous flutter. He hadn't recognized me, thank God. I quickly gathered the last of my things, my face burning with embarrassment. Right, sorry again, I mumbled, not meeting his eyes. I practically ran out of the building, my heart pounding in my ears. Nam watched her go, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. He had been reviewing a business plan on his tablet when she collided with him, and his initial reaction was irritation. But then he saw her face, the big, startled eyes, the flush on her cheeks. It was the girl from the photo, Blair. A slow, amused smile spread across his face. He hadn't expected to see her here, of all places, and she clearly had no idea who he was. This, he thought, could be very interesting. He watched until she disappeared through the front doors. Then he continued on his way to his office, the corners of his mouth still turned up in a slight, mysterious smile. He had a feeling he knew exactly why she was here. When I finally met up with Chloe at our favorite cafe, I was still flustered. "What's with you?" she asked, raising an eyebrow as I slid into the booth. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I told her about my clumsy encounter, conveniently leaving out the part about who the man was. I didn't want to talk about him. Not yet. "So, you're really going to work at Star?" she asked, changing the subject. "If they'll have me," I said with a shrug. "It's a long shot, I know." "Well, you're talented, Blair. If anyone can do it, you can." "Thanks, Chloe," I said, my heart warming at her unwavering support. "We'll see." We spent the rest of the day together, shopping and laughing, and for a little while, I managed to forget about everything else. The heartbreak, the humiliation, the ghost from my past who was now, apparently, the CEO of the company I had just applied to. Meanwhile, back at Star, Nam was in his office, a thoughtful expression on his face. He called his assistant, Alex, into the room. "Alex," he said, his voice calm and authoritative, "go down to the recruitment office. Bring me all of the design submissions that came in today." "All of them, sir?" Alex asked, slightly surprised. "All of them," Nam confirmed. A few minutes later, Alex returned with a large stack of portfolios. Nam dismissed him and began to go through them, one by one. He examined each one carefully, his expression impassive, but he didn't find what he was looking for. Her name wasn't there. He frowned, a flicker of disappointment in his eyes. He had been so sure she was applying for the designer position. What else could she have been doing here? He picked up his phone and called Alex back. "I need you to check the security footage from the second floor. From around noon today, there was a young woman in the recruitment office. I want to know who she is and why she was there." He sent Alex a screen grab of me from the party's press photos. "This is her." "Yes, sir, right away." 20 minutes later, Alex was back, holding a single, slim portfolio. "Sir, I found her. She was submitting for the design competition. Her name is Blair Tran." A slow smile of satisfaction spread across Nam's face. "Excellent. Leave it here. You may go." He picked up the portfolio, his fingers tracing the elegant script of my name on the cover. He opened it, and his eyes widened in surprise. The designs were breathtaking, innovative, elegant, and utterly original. There was a raw, undeniable talent in every single line. He had known she was beautiful, but he had never imagined she was this gifted. He looked at the 4 sketches, a sense of admiration growing within him. "She's not just a pretty face," he thought. "She's a genius." He leaned back in his chair, a new, determined light in his eyes. He would not let a talent like this slip through his fingers. He would make sure she got the job. He had to have her here, at his company, working for him. A week later, I was still languishing in a state of nervous anticipation. I hadn't heard anything from Star, and I was starting to lose hope. I had been sleeping in late, a bad habit I'd picked up since the breakup. The shrill ring of my phone woke me from a deep sleep. I fumbled for it on my nightstand, my eyes still bleary. "Hello?" I mumbled, not bothering to check the caller ID. "Hello? Is this Blair Tran?" A professional, female voice asked. "Yes, this is she," I said, sitting up a little straighter. "I'm calling from Star Fashion. I'm pleased to inform you that your portfolio has been selected by our board of directors. Congratulations. You are now an official designer for our company." I bolted upright in bed, suddenly wide awake. "What? Are you serious?" "My designs were chosen." "That's right," the woman said, a hint of amusement in her voice. "Could you please come to the office tomorrow morning to discuss the details of your employment?" Yes, of course. Thank you so much," I babbled, my heart soaring. I hung up the phone and let out a whoop of pure joy, jumping up and down on my bed like a little kid. I had done it. I had actually done it. I ran downstairs to tell my parents, who were just as thrilled as I was. "That's my girl," my father boomed, pulling me into a bear hug. "I knew you could do it." "Oh, sweetheart, we're so proud of you," my mother said, her eyes shining with happy tears. "But remember, if the work is too hard, you can always come work for your father. We don't want you to struggle." "I know, Mom," I said, hugging them both. "But I want to do this. I love you guys so much." I spent the rest of the day on a cloud of euphoria, calling Chloe to share the good news. She screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear, and celebrating with my family. For the first time in a long time, the future looked bright again. I was finally starting a new chapter, one that I was writing all on my own. I had no idea that the man holding the pen was the one I was trying so desperately to run from. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm, a nervous energy buzzing under my skin. This was it, my first day. I chose my outfit with meticulous care, a chic but professional dress, heels that were stylish but comfortable enough to walk in, and a matching blazer. I wanted to look the part. At Star, I was directed to the design department. My first impression was one of creative chaos. The space was open and airy, with sketches and fabric swatches pinned to every available surface. A woman with a sharp, stylish haircut and an air of authority approached me. "You must be Blair," she said, extending a hand. "I'm Sarah, the department head. Welcome to the team." Her smile was warm and genuine, and I immediately felt a little more at ease. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Sarah." She introduced me to the other designers, a team of 6 incredibly talented and friendly people. They welcomed me with open arms, and the last of my nervousness melted away. Sarah showed me to my desk, a clean white space with a brand new computer and a stunning view of the city. She handed me a thick binder. "This is our current project brief and design guidelines," she explained. "Take your time to go through it. We're on a tight deadline, so it's all hands on deck." "Got it," I said, my heart thrumming with excitement. "Thank you." I spent the rest of the morning poring over the documents, my mind already buzzing with ideas. Being a part of a company like Star, I knew the standards were incredibly high. One mistake, one slip-up, and you were out. I was determined to not just meet their expectations, but to exceed them. Upstairs, in his minimalist, gray-toned office, Nam watched me on his security monitor. A small, almost imperceptible smile played on his lips. He watched as I interacted with my new colleagues, as I settled into my desk, as I focused on my work with an intensity that he found captivating. The little girl he had once so callously dismissed had grown into a remarkable woman, and now she was here, in his company, under his watch. A strange, protective feeling stirred within him. He didn't quite understand it himself. Was it guilt? A sense of responsibility for the past? Or something else entirely? He pushed the thought aside. For now, it was enough just to have her here. He found himself smiling more that day than he had in months. The cold, aloof demeanor that was his trademark seemed to have thawed, replaced by a warmth that his assistant, Alex, found both surprising and slightly unsettling. He knew somehow that the new designer in the office had something to do with it. My first day passed in a blur of focused work and creative energy. By the time I left the office, it was already past 6. I was tired, but it was a good kind of tired, the kind that comes from a day of purposeful, fulfilling work. When I got home, my mother was waiting for me. She saw the exhaustion on my face and immediately drew me over to the sofa, pulling my head into her lap. "You look tired, my love," she said, her fingers gently carding through my hair. "A long day?" "A little," I admitted, snuggling into her embrace, "but a good one. I had to get up to speed on everything, so I left a bit late." "Blair, darling," she said, her voice soft with concern, "you know you don't have to do this. Your father and I, we only have you. We don't want to see you struggle. If this job is too much, you can always come home. We can take care of you, always." I smiled, my heart swelling with love for this incredible woman. "I know you do, Mom, but I want to do this for myself. I want to stand on my own 2 feet. When I feel like I can't go on, I promise, you and Dad will be the first people I call for help." I looked up at her, my eyes shining. Okay, my love," she said, her own eyes glistening. "Whatever makes you happy. Now, go take a shower. Your father will be home soon, and we can all have dinner together." "Yes, ma'am," I said, giving her a playful salute. I went upstairs, my steps light. In the shower, I let the hot water wash away the day's fatigue, but it couldn't wash away the sense of accomplishment, of purpose, that filled me. I was finally on my way. The next few weeks were a dream. The work was challenging but exhilarating. My colleagues were supportive and collaborative, and I was good at it, really good. I felt like I had finally found my place in the world. Then, one evening, as I was leaving the office, my dream turned into a nightmare. He was there, waiting for me by the entrance. Albert. He was holding a ridiculously large bouquet of roses. I tried to walk past him, to pretend I didn't see him, but he stepped in front of me, blocking my path. "Blair," he said, his voice pleading. "Let go of me, Albert. Just talk to me, Blair," he said, reaching for my arm. "Please, why are you avoiding me?" I recoiled from his touch as if I'd been burned. "Avoiding you? I'm not avoiding you. You simply don't exist in my world anymore." "How did you know I work here?" I demanded, my voice cold. "I know everything about you, Blair," he said, a possessive gleam in his eye. "I'm not following you. I want to see you." He tried to press the flowers into my hands. "Let me take you home." "I don't need you to," I snapped, pushing the bouquet back at him. "Now get out of my way." "Blair, please." He grabbed my arm again, his grip surprisingly strong. "I was wrong. Give me another chance, please." "Don't you understand English?" I said, my voice rising in anger. "We are over. Finished. There is nothing left between us." I tried to pull away, but he held on tight. Just as I was about to scream, a large hand clamped down on his wrist, and a deep, authoritative voice cut through the tension. "Let her go." We both looked up. It was Nam. He was standing there, his face a mask of cold fury, his eyes like chips of ice. "Who the hell are you?" Albert snarled, trying to shake him off. But Nam's grip was like steel. "Who I am is not your concern," Nam said, his voice dangerously low. "But if you ever bother her again, you will have to deal with me." He effortlessly pulled Albert's hand off my arm and stepped between us, positioning himself as a protective barrier. Albert, realizing he was outmatched, glared at me, his face contorted with jealousy and rage. "So, this is it, huh? You found a new man already, and here I thought you were different. Turns out you're just like all the other cheap women out there. The moment we break up, you jump into another man's bed." The words were so vile, so completely unfair, that for a moment I was too stunned to speak. Then, a white-hot rage washed over me. I stepped out from behind Nam, my hand flying through the air, and slapped Albert across the face. Hard. The crack echoed in the sudden silence of the lobby. "You shut your filthy mouth," I hissed, my voice trembling with fury. "You have no right to talk to me like that. You know, looking back, I realize how lucky I am to have escaped you. Now, get out of my sight, and don't you ever let me see your face again." I grabbed Nam's hand, my own shaking, and pulled him towards the exit, leaving Albert standing there, holding his cheek, a look of shocked disbelief on his face. We walked in silence to the parking garage. My mind was reeling, my heart was pounding. I was so upset I could barely think straight. Nam led me to his car, a sleek, black Aston Martin, and opened the passenger door for me. I slid in without a word. The ride was silent, the tension in the car thick enough to cut with a knife. I leaned my head against the cool glass of the window, my eyes closed, trying to calm the storm raging inside me. "Are you all right?" Nam asked finally, his voice softer than I had ever heard it. "I'm fine," I whispered, not opening my eyes. "That man, was he your ex-boyfriend?" "He was," I said, my voice flat. "But that was a long time ago." He didn't press for more, and I was grateful for the silence. When we arrived at my house, I turned to him. "Thank you," I said, my voice barely a whisper. For what you did back there." "It was nothing," he said, his gaze steady. "Get some rest." I nodded and got out of the car, not looking back. I went up to my room and collapsed onto the bed, the events of the evening replaying in my mind. Just as I was drifting into a troubled sleep, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "Are you okay?" I hesitated for a moment, then typed back, "Thank you. I'm fine." Another message came through almost immediately. Don't dwell on it. Get some rest. A small, reluctant smile touched my lips. The cold, aloof CEO had a surprisingly gentle side. I put the phone down, a strange warmth spreading through my chest. Maybe he wasn't the monster I remembered after all. The next day at work, a massive bouquet of flowers was sitting on my desk. They were beautiful, but my stomach clenched when I saw the card. Hoping your day is as beautiful as you are. Love, Albert. A wave of disgust washed over me. He was relentless. Just then, Tina, one of my new friends in the department, walked by. "Ooh, Blair, someone's got an admirer," she said, winking. "Your boyfriend is so sweet." I managed a tight smile. "He's not my boyfriend," I said, my voice clipped. "He's just a psycho who can't take a hint." Without another word, I picked up the vase and dumped the entire bouquet, water and all, into the trash can. Tina and the other designers stared at me, their eyes wide with shock. "Wow, Blair," Tina said, a low whistle escaping her lips. "That was dramatic." "The flowers were gorgeous, though. They may be beautiful on the outside," I said, turning back to my computer. "But the person who sent them is rotten to the core. Now, let's get back to work. We have a deadline, remember?" The office fell silent, everyone quickly returning to their tasks. A few minutes later, Sarah, the department head, walked in, clapping her hands to get our attention. "All right, everyone, huddle up. I have an announcement." We all gathered around the central table, a sense of nervous anticipation in the air. Sarah's expression was serious. "I just came from a meeting with the CEO," she began. "He has a new directive for our department." "What is it, Sarah?" Tina asked, voicing the question on all our minds. "He's pushing up the deadline for the new collection. He wants it finished in 1 week." A collective gasp went through the room. "1 week?" someone exclaimed. "That's impossible." "I know it's a tight deadline," Sarah said, holding up a hand to quell the rising panic. But he was very clear. He wants it done. She then turned her gaze to me, a strange, unreadable expression on her face. "And Blair, there's something else. What is it?" I asked, a sense of foreboding creeping over me. "For the next 2 months, you will be temporarily reassigned. You'll be working as the CEO's personal assistant." The room erupted in a flurry of whispers. Every eye was on me. I felt my face go pale. "What? His assistant? But why? Is there some kind of mistake?" "No mistake," Sarah said, her voice firm. "The order came directly from the CEO himself. Your desk has already been prepared on the top floor. You're to report to him immediately." I stood there, completely stunned, as Sarah walked away. The other designers were staring at me, their expressions a mixture of shock, envy, and suspicion. I hadn't even met the CEO yet, but I'd heard the rumors. He was a brilliant, handsome, but notoriously cold and demanding man. To be singled out by him like this, it was unheard of. A few of the more catty designers started whispering, just loud enough for me to hear. "An assistant? She just got here. How did she manage that?" "I bet I know how." Another one sneered. "She must have impressed him in other ways." Their words were like little daggers, and I felt a hot flush of anger and humiliation, but I refused to let them see me crumble. I held my head high, gathered my things, and walked out of the design department without a word. As I rode the elevator up to the top floor, my mind was racing. Why was he doing this? What did he want from me? This couldn't be a coincidence. My hand clenched into a fist. I was going to find out. The top floor was silent and opulent, a stark contrast to the creative chaos of the design department. There was only one door at the end of the long, carpeted hallway. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding, and knocked. A moment later, a deep, calm voice came from within. "Come in." The voice was crisp, authoritative, and chillingly familiar. My blood ran cold. No, it can't be. I pushed the heavy door open and stepped inside. The office was vast and minimalist, with a floor-to-ceiling window that offered a breathtaking view of the city. A man was sitting behind a large, imposing desk, his back to me, focused on his computer. He was wearing a simple, white dress shirt, the top 2 buttons undone, and tailored trousers. I stood there for a moment, my feet rooted to the floor, my eyes fixed on him. "Excuse me, sir," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You wanted to see me?" He didn't turn around. "Yes, what is it?" I'm Blair, from the design department. I was told to report to you." It was only then that he slowly swiveled his chair around to face me, and my world tilted on its axis. Our eyes met, and in that instant, everything clicked into place. The familiar voice, the arrogance, the reason I had gotten the job in the first place. The CEO of Star Fashion, the man who had personally requested me as his assistant, was him. Nathan, Nam, the monster from my past. My mind reeled, a chaotic slideshow of memories, flashing before my eyes. The party, the collision in the lobby, the way he had so easily gotten rid of Albert. It had all been him. He had known who I was all along. He was the son of Uncle Tuan, the man I never, ever wanted to see again. And now, he was my boss. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The air in the room was thick, heavy, suffocating. I felt a wave of nausea. This was a nightmare. This had to be a nightmare. Without a second thought, I turned and fled. I didn't say a word, didn't make a sound. I just turned and walked towards the door, my only thought to get as far away from him as possible. "Stop." His voice was quiet, but it was a command, not a request. It stopped me in my tracks, my hand hovering over the doorknob. I stood there, my back to him, my entire body trembling. "You had something you wanted to ask me, didn't you?" he said, his voice laced with a cool amusement. "Why leave before you get your answer?" He knew. Of course, he knew. He had been expecting me. This was all a game to him, a cruel, twisted game. I took a deep, shuddering breath, forcing myself to be calm. I slowly turned around to face him, my expression a mask of cold fury. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice low and steady. "You knew who I was from the very beginning, didn't you?" "Very perceptive," he said, a ghost of a smirk playing on his lips. "And yes, to answer your question, I recognized you the moment you walked into my company. So, this was all a setup? You orchestrated all of this?" "Not at all," he said, leaning back in his chair, the picture of nonchalant power. "I simply changed the position of an employee. As for you working here, well, you're the one who submitted your portfolio, aren't you? I didn't force you." He was right, and that made me even angrier. I had walked right into his trap. I lifted my chin, my eyes flashing with defiance. "Fine. You know what? If I had known you were the CEO of this company, I would have died before setting foot in here. I quit." "I don't think you can do that." "Watch me," I sneered. "A small-time designer like me, I'm sure you can find a replacement in a heartbeat. After all, you never wanted me around in the first place, did you? Well, now you don't have to kick me out. I'm leaving on my own." "As I said," he repeated, his voice dangerously soft. "I don't think you can." "And why is that?" I demanded. He pressed a button on his intercom. "Alex, could you come in for a moment?" The door opened, and his assistant, Alex, walked in. "Yes, sir." "Alex, please explain to Miss Tran the terms of her employment contract." Alex nodded and turned to me, his expression polite but firm. Miss Tran, before you officially started your employment, you signed a 1-year contract with our company. If an employee chooses to terminate the contract prematurely, they will be held liable for breach of contract and will be required to pay a substantial penalty fee. He handed me a copy of the contract, the clause highlighted in yellow. It's all right here. It's standard procedure for our company. To prevent is less than #0. 3# is greater than disruptions. I snatched the contract from his hand, my eyes scanning the fine print. And there it was, in black and white. I was trapped. In my excitement to get the job, I had barely glanced at the contract before signing. I had been so naive. I looked up at Nam, my eyes blazing with hatred. I'll pay the penalty. My company doesn't need your money, he said, his voice flat. Then what do you want? I cried, my composure finally cracking. He stood up and walked around his desk, stopping just a few feet in front of me. He was so tall, so imposing. I had to tilt my head back to look at him. I want you to stay, he said, his voice quiet, his gaze intense. Fulfill your contract. After 1 year, you can leave, and I won't stop you. My face fell. It was a checkmate. I was stuck with him, the one person in the world I never wanted to see again. Why? Why was he doing this? What did he possibly want from me? My mind was a chaotic mess of anger, frustration, and a deep, gut-wrenching sense of despair. My life, which had just started to look so bright, had suddenly been plunged back into darkness. First Albert, and now him. It was true what they said. You can't outrun your past. And sometimes, it comes back to haunt you in the most unexpected and cruelest of ways. I stormed out of his office, slamming the door behind me with a resounding crash that echoed in the silent hallway. My whole body was shaking with a furious, helpless rage. I felt like a caged animal as I stood there, trying to catch my breath. My phone buzzed. It was Chloe. Hey, you, I answered, my voice tight with frustration. Whoa, what's wrong? You sound like you're about to kill someone. I seethed. Meet me, the coffee shop across the street. Now, on my way. I rode the elevator down, my mind a turbulent sea of anger and confusion. This was all a game to him, a way to exert his power, to torment me, just like he did when we were kids. Well, I wasn't a scared little girl anymore. I wouldn't let him win. But how could I fight back when he held all the cards? When I got to the coffee shop, Chloe was already there, a concerned look on her face. Okay, spill, she said, as I slumped into the chair opposite her. What happened? I told her everything. About the CEO being Nathan, about the contract, about being trapped. I'm going crazy, Chloe, I finished, burying my face in my hands. I want to quit, but I can't. She listened patiently, her expression growing darker with every word. When I was done, she was silent for a long moment. So, you're not a designer anymore, she said finally, her voice thoughtful. You're his personal assistant. Temporarily, I corrected her bitterly. For 2 months, and you know who he is? The kid who put caterpillars in your jacket? I nodded miserably. Okay, she said, a strange, determined light in her eyes. This is what you're going to do. You're going to be the best damn assistant he's ever seen. You're going to be professional, efficient, and completely indispensable. And you're going to treat him like he's just another boss. No emotion, no history, just work. But Chloe, I can't. You can, she interrupted, her voice firm. Look, Blair, he's a grown man now. He's not going to play childish pranks on you. There's probably a reason he's doing this. and you're not going to find out what it is by running away. So, you stay, you do your job, and you show him that you are not the little girl he used to bully." Her words, as always, were a splash of cold, sobering water. She was right. Running away was what he expected me to do, but staying, facing him on my own terms, that was the last thing he would anticipate. "Okay," I said, a new resolve hardening in my voice. "Okay, I'll do it." Back in his office, Nam sat in the silence, a thoughtful expression on his face. He hadn't meant to trap her, not really. He wanted a chance to get to know her again, to apologize for the past. He knew she was stubborn, and he had a feeling that if he didn't force her hand, she would have been gone in a heartbeat. He felt a pang of guilt. Was this the right way to go about it? Probably not, but it was the only way he could think of to keep her here. He just wanted to be near her, to help her, to make up for the pain he had caused her all those years ago. And maybe, just maybe, to get to know the brilliant, beautiful woman she had become. It wasn't about love, not in a romantic sense. He already had someone in his life, a woman in New York he was deeply committed to. This was about atonement. The next morning, I walked into the office with my head held high, my face a mask of cool professionalism. I had spent the entire night psyching myself up, building a wall of ice around my heart. He would not get to me. I decided to arrive late, a small act of defiance. It was past 8 when I finally stepped off the elevator. Alex, Nam's assistant, was waiting for me, a frantic look on his face. "Blair, oh, thank God you're here. Where have you been?" "Good morning, Alex," I said calmly. "Is there a problem? The CEO has been asking for you. He's not in a good mood." "Oh, really?" I said, a flicker of satisfaction in my chest. "Well, I'm here now." I walked to my new desk, which was situated just outside his office, and took my time settling in. A few minutes later, the intercom on my desk buzzed. "Get in here, now." His voice was cold and clipped. I took a deep breath, straightened my blazer, and walked into his office. He was standing by the window, his back to me. "You're late," he said, without turning around. "I am aware of the time, sir," I replied, my voice equally cold. "Is there something you need?" He turned around then, and for a moment, our eyes met. His were dark and intense, and I felt a strange, unwelcome flutter in my stomach. I quickly suppressed it. "I need the detailed report for this afternoon's board meeting," he said, his voice all business. "On my desk in 2 hours." "Yes, sir," I said, my voice crisp. I picked up the thick file from his desk and turned to leave. As I walked out, I could feel his eyes on me, a heavy, unreadable gaze that sent a shiver down my spine. I spent the next 7 hours working like a woman possessed. I didn't stop for lunch, didn't even take a break. I was determined to prove to him that I was more than capable of handling anything he threw at me. Finally, late in the afternoon, it was done. I walked back into his office and placed the finished report on his desk. "It's finished, sir," I said, my voice laced with a triumphant exhaustion. He didn't even look up from his computer. "Good. Now, I need you to arrange my schedule for next week. And after that, I want you to review every single design for the new collection. I need them ready for the launch tomorrow." I stared at him in disbelief. "Tomorrow?" "That's what I said," he replied, his voice flat. I left his office, a wave of weariness washing over me. My body ached, and I was starving, but I couldn't stop now. I had to see this through. I quickly drank a carton of milk from the office fridge and got back to work. I knew I would be working late tonight. As I meticulously went through the designs, a sense of disappointment washed over me. For a company like Star, they were mediocre, uninspired. Out of the entire collection, there were only 3 pieces that I felt were even remotely acceptable. This wouldn't do. Not for a company of this caliber. Not for a launch this important. I sighed. It looked like I was going to have to do it myself. I called my mother to let her know I would be home late. Then I took out a fresh sketchbook and a set of pencils. Designing was my passion, my escape. And as I started to sketch, the exhaustion and frustration of the day melted away, replaced by a familiar, exhilarating flow of creative energy. The ideas came fast and furious, my pencil flying across the page. In less than 3 hours, I had 5 new designs, 5 pieces that were bold, modern, and undeniably star. I smiled, a sense of pride swelling in my chest. I leaned back in my chair, my eyes closed, savoring the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. Just then, the door to the CEO's office opened, and he stepped out. He stopped short when he saw me, a look of surprise on his face. He had been working late too, and he hadn't expected anyone else to be there. "You're still here?" he asked, his voice softer than before. "As you can see," I replied, my voice cool. "Thanks to you, I've had a lot of work to do." I started to pack up my things, eager to get home. "Well, I'm leaving now. Good night, sir." I stood up to go, but a wave of dizziness suddenly washed over me. The lack of food and sleep had finally caught up to me. I swayed on my feet, my vision going black for a second. I had to grab the edge of my desk to steady myself. In an instant, he was by my side, his hand on my arm, his face etched with concern. "Are you all right?" His touch was like an electric shock, sending a jolt through my entire body. I quickly pulled away. "I'm fine," I said, my voice shaky. I tried to walk past him, but he grabbed my hand, his grip firm but gentle. "Let me take you home." "I don't need you to," I said, trying to pull away. "I can get home by myself." He ignored my protests, his grip tightening slightly. "Don't be stubborn," he said, his voice low and authoritative. "You're coming with me." He led me to his car, his hand never leaving mine. I was too tired to fight, too exhausted to argue. I just let him lead me, a strange sense of surrender washing over me. In the car, the silence was thick and heavy. I leaned my head against the window, my eyes closed, and drifted into a light, uneasy sleep. When I woke up, we were parked in front of a small, brightly lit noodle shop. "Where are we?" I asked, my voice groggy with sleep. "A restaurant," he said simply. "Let's go." We sat at a small table, the aroma of delicious, savory broth filling the air. An elderly woman with a kind, wrinkled face came over to our table. "Nam, my boy," she said, her face breaking into a wide, warm smile. "And who is this pretty young lady?" "Your girlfriend." I stiffened, a hot blush creeping up my neck. Before I could say anything, Nam chuckled. "No, Auntie. She's just a friend." "What a shame," she said, winking at me. "You two make a beautiful couple. Now, what can I get for you?" He ordered for both of us, and a few minutes later, 2 steaming bowls of pho were placed in front of us. I stared at him, a look of disbelief on my face. "What?" he asked, catching my eye. "You look surprised." I never pictured someone like you eating in a place like this," I admitted. "And why is that?" he asked, an amused glint in his eye. "You think all rich people eat at fancy restaurants every night?" "Well, yes," I said, feeling a little foolish. He chuckled. "You're wrong. I come here all the time. The food is the best in the city." I took a bite, and my eyes widened in surprise. He was right. It was delicious. But despite the incredible food and my growling stomach, I found I had very little appetite. The thought of having to go back to work for him tomorrow, of having to face him day after day, was a heavy weight in my chest. "Why are you picking at your food?" he asked, his brow furrowed. "It's good, isn't it?" "It is," I said, pushing my bowl away. "I'm just not hungry." "You haven't eaten all day," he said, his voice firm. "You need to eat." "How can I eat?" I snapped, my frustration finally boiling over. "When all I can think about is how you're going to make my life a living hell tomorrow. Was that your plan all along, to work me to death?" He stared at me for a long moment, and then, to my utter astonishment, he burst out laughing, a real, genuine laugh that crinkled the corners of his eyes and made him look younger, more human. "What's so funny?" I demanded, my cheeks flushing with anger. "You," he said, still chuckling. "You really thought I was serious?" His words hung in the air between us, and a slow, dawning realization washed over me. He had been bluffing, he had been testing me, and I had fallen for it. Hook, line, and sinker. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "I'm leaving." I walked out of the restaurant, my mind reeling. He followed me, grabbing my arm to stop me. "Let go of me," I said, trying to wrench my arm away. "Get in the car, Blair," he said, his voice firm but not unkind. "I'll take you home." "No, Blair," he said, his voice dropping to a low, persuasive murmur. "Get in the car, and I'll consider not making you work overtime for the rest of the week." I stopped struggling and looked at him, my eyes narrowed in suspicion. "Are you serious?" "I am," he said, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. "I promise." I hesitated for a moment, then sighed in defeat. "Fine." I got in the car, and he drove me home in a comfortable silence. As he pulled up to my gate, I turned to him. "You'll keep your promise, right?" "I will," he said, his gaze steady. "Good night, Blair." "Good night," I whispered, and got out of the car. As I walked up the path to my house, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of confusion. He wasn't the monster I remembered. He wasn't the cold, ruthless CEO everyone made him out to be. He was something else, something I couldn't quite figure out, and that, more than anything, scared me. The next morning, I walked into the office carrying 2 separate folders. I placed the portfolio from the design team on one side of his desk, and the one containing my own sketches on the other. "Good morning, sir," I said, my voice crisp and professional. "These are the designs for the new collection." He looked up from his computer, his expression unreadable. I pointed to the first folder. "This is the work submitted by the design team. I reviewed it last night, and frankly, I was disappointed. The designs are simplistic, outdated, and lack the innovation that Star is known for." I paused, taking a breath. Our headquarters in New York is a global trendsetter. The designers in this office, however, seem to lack the experience and creativity to uphold that standard. I then slid my own folder across the desk towards him. "These are some alternative designs I sketched last night. It took me less than 3 hours. The design team had over a week and produced." He was silent for a long moment, his gaze shifting from me to the 2 folders on his desk. He picked up the first one, flipping through the mediocre designs with a deepening frown. He then opened mine. As his eyes scanned my sketches, his expression changed. A flicker of surprise, then admiration, crossed his face. He looked at me, a new respect in his eyes. "These are exceptional," he said, his voice quiet. Without another word, he picked up his phone and called Alex. "Get in here. Now." Alex appeared in the doorway a moment later. "Yes, sir. Find me a new design team," Nam said, his voice cold and decisive. "Fire the entire department. Immediately." "Yes, sir," Alex replied, not batting an eye. I watched, a little stunned by his swift, ruthless efficiency. He was a man who knew what he wanted and didn't hesitate to act. In that moment, I couldn't help but feel a grudging admiration for him. He was a true leader. A week later, things at the office had settled into a new rhythm. A new, highly talented design team had been hired, and the atmosphere in the department was electric with creative energy. And, true to his word, Nam hadn't made me work a single minute of overtime. One afternoon, as I was leaving the office, I was surprised to see Chloe waiting for me at the entrance. "Chloe, what are you doing here?" I asked, a wide smile spreading across my face. "I had an interview," she said, trying to look casual, but I could see the nervous excitement in her eyes. "An interview? Here, you didn't tell me. I wanted to surprise you," she said, "but now I'm freaking out. What if I don't get it?" "Are you kidding me?" I said, grabbing her by the shoulders. "With your talent, you're a shoo-in. Don't worry about it." I linked my arm through hers. "Come on, I'm starving. Let's go get some dinner." As we walked, my mind drifted back to my own strange situation. The days were easier now. Working so closely with Nam, I had started to see a different side of him. He was still demanding and a perfectionist, but he was also fair, brilliant, and surprisingly patient. He would explain complex business strategies to me, listen to my opinions, and even, on rare occasions, praise my work. The wall of ice I had built around my heart was beginning to thaw, whether I wanted it to or not. A few days later, Chloe called me, screaming with excitement. She had gotten the job. She was now a designer at Star. I was overjoyed. Having my best friend at work with me was a dream come true. Our daily routine became a comfortable one. We would commute to work together, have lunch, and often, Nam would offer to drive us both home. He and I had fallen into a surprisingly easy rapport. The animosity of the past had been replaced by a quiet, professional respect that was slowly, imperceptibly, blossoming into something that felt a lot like friendship. Then, one evening, as Nam was dropping me off, it happened again. Albert was there, lurking by my gate like a vulture. The moment he saw me, he lunged forward, grabbing my hand. "Blair, we need to talk." Before I could even react, Nam was out of the car, his face a thunderous mask. He grabbed Albert's arm, his voice a low growl. "I thought I told you to stay away from her." Albert, emboldened by a jealousy-fueled rage, sneered at him. "And I thought I told you to stay out of our business. She's my girlfriend." The lie was so audacious, so completely delusional, that I just stared at him, speechless. Nam's grip on his arm tightened, and for a second, I thought he was going to hit him. But instead, he did something far more shocking. He pulled me to his side, his arm wrapping possessively around my waist, and looked Albert straight in the eye. "She's not your girlfriend," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "She's mine." And then, before I could process what was happening, he leaned down and kissed me. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was hard and fierce and full of a raw, untamed emotion that took my breath away. For a dizzying, terrifying moment, I forgot where I was, who he was. I forgot everything except the feel of his lips on mine, the strong arm holding me against him, the wild, chaotic beating of my own heart. He pulled away, his eyes blazing, and looked at the stunned, furious face of my ex. "Now, get out of here," he said, his voice low and final. "And don't ever come back." Albert stared at us, his face a mask of disbelief and impotent rage, then turned and stormed off into the night. The moment he was gone, the spell was broken. I pulled away from Nam, my face burning, my mind reeling. What had just happened? I should go, I stammered, not meeting his eyes. Blair, he said, his voice soft. I didn't wait to hear what he had to say. I turned and fled into the safety of my house, my heart pounding a frantic, chaotic rhythm against my ribs. I leaned against the closed door, my fingers flying to my lips. They were still tingling from his kiss. The lines had become blurred. He was my boss. He was the boy who had tormented me. And now he was the man who had kissed me with a passion that had shaken me to my very core. My feelings were a tangled, confusing mess. I hated him. I was grateful to him. I was attracted to him. And that, more than anything, terrified me, because I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that letting him into my heart would be the most dangerous thing I had ever done. I didn't know it then, but it was already too late. He was already there. The next day at the office was excruciatingly awkward. I avoided him as much as possible, my face flushing every time he looked at me. He, on the other hand, was the picture of cool professionalism, as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. The dynamic between us had shifted, the unspoken tension crackling in the air whenever we were in the same room. As the weeks turned into months, a strange, unspoken pattern developed between us. We worked together seamlessly during the day, a well-oiled machine of professional efficiency, and in the evenings, he would drive me home, our conversations becoming longer, more personal. He told me about his life in New York, about the pressures of running a global company, about his dreams for the future. I, in turn, found myself opening up to him, telling him about my passion for design, about my relationship with my parents, about the pain Albert had caused me. He was a good listener and a surprisingly insightful advisor. He was no longer the cruel boy from my past or the cold CEO from my first day. He was just Nam, a man who was complicated and brilliant, and who, against all my better judgment, I was starting to fall for. And I knew with a terrifying certainty that I was heading for a heartbreak that would make what Albert did to me feel like a paper cut, because I knew about her, the woman in New York, the one he was committed to, the one who held his heart. I was falling in love with a man who could never be mine, and I was completely, utterly powerless to stop it. One morning, I was bringing him his usual cup of black coffee when I found his office empty. It was unusual. He was always the first one in. A strange sense of unease settled over me. I went to Alex's office, a knot of worry tightening in my stomach. "Hey, Alex," I said, trying to sound casual. "Have you seen Nam this morning? He's not in his office." Alex looked up from his computer, his expression somber. He hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "Blair, can you close the door?" I did as he asked, my heart starting to beat a little faster. I sat down in the chair opposite his desk. "What is it, Alex? Is he okay? We've gotten to know each other pretty well over the last few months, right?" he said, his voice low. "And I know you have feelings for him." I opened my mouth to deny it, but he held up a hand. "You don't have to say anything. It's written all over your face, and that's why I'm going to tell you this. I'm hoping you can help him." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Last night, his girlfriend in New York, her name is Hannah. She called him. She told him she'd found someone else. She broke up with him." The words hit me like a physical blow. Hannah. So that was her name, my rival, the woman who held the heart of the man I loved. And now, she had broken it. A strange, conflicted mix of emotions washed over me. A flicker of triumphant hope, immediately followed by a wave of guilt and a deep, empathetic pain for him. He took it hard, Alex continued, his voice heavy with concern. He went out and got completely drunk. I'm sure he's still passed out at his apartment. This is his address. He scribbled something on a piece of paper and slid it across the desk to me. I know it's not my place to ask, Blair, but I think you're the only one who can get through to him right now. I took the piece of paper, my hand trembling slightly. I'll go see him. I left the office in a daze, my mind reeling. I took a taxi to his apartment, the address clutched in my hand like a lifeline. It was a sleek, modern high-rise in the most exclusive part of the city. I buzzed his apartment, my heart pounding, but there was no answer. I tried the door, and to my surprise, it was unlocked. I stepped inside, my heart in my throat. The apartment was dark and silent, the air thick with the stale smell of alcohol. Empty bottles were scattered across the floor. I found him in his bedroom, passed out on the bed, still fully clothed. My heart ached at the sight of him. He looked so broken, so vulnerable. This wasn't the powerful, confident CEO I knew. This was a man in pain. I gently shook his shoulder. Numb, wake up, he groaned, his eyes fluttering open. They were red-rimmed and unfocused. When he saw me, a flicker of confusion, then annoyance, crossed his face. Blair, what are you doing here? Alex told me what happened, I said softly. I was worried about you. I'm fine, he slurred, turning his face away from me. Go home. He tried to push me away, but I stood my ground. I went to the kitchen and made him a bowl of soup, my movements quiet and efficient. I came back into the bedroom and found him sitting on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. Here, I said, placing the bowl on his nightstand. Eat this. You'll feel better. He looked at me, his eyes full of a raw, desperate pain that made my own heart ache in sympathy. Why are you still here? He asked, his voice rough with emotion. Because you need someone, I said simply. I started to clean up the apartment, picking up the empty bottles, airing out the rooms. He just sat there, watching me, a strange, unreadable expression on his face. I knew my presence was making him uncomfortable, but I didn't care. He was hurting, and I couldn't just leave him alone. As I was tidying his bedroom, I accidentally knocked over a picture frame on his nightstand. It was a photo of him and a beautiful, raven-haired woman, both of them laughing, their faces pressed close together. Hannah, a sharp, jealous pang went through me. Even in his pain, he was still thinking of her. He saw what I was looking at, and something inside him seemed to snap. He shot up from the bed, his face a mask of cold fury. Get out, he said, his voice dangerously low. Numb, I said. Get out, he roared, his voice echoing in the silent apartment. Leave me alone. Can't you see I don't want you here? I don't love you, Blair. Do you understand? I will never love you. To me, you will always be just a little sister, nothing more. His words were like a slap in the face, each one a sharp, cruel blow, but I refused to let him see how much they hurt. I looked at him, my expression calm, my voice steady. How can I be your sister? I asked, a sad, wry smile on my lips. We don't have the same mother. He stared at me, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. He grabbed me by the shoulders, his grip painfully tight, forcing me to look at him. Listen to me, Blair, he said, his voice a low, intense whisper. The woman I love is... I didn't let him finish. In a moment of pure, reckless desperation, I stood on my toes, wrapped my arms around his neck, and kissed him. It was a kiss born of love and pain and a desperate, hopeless longing. For a moment, he was too stunned to react. He just stood there, his body rigid, as I poured all of my unspoken feelings into that one desperate act. Then he pushed me away, his face a mask of shock and anger. "What do you think you're doing?" "I'm sorry," I whispered, my face burning with shame. "Go home, Blair," he said, his voice rough. "I need to be alone." I didn't say another word. I grabbed my purse and fled, his harsh words chasing me out the door. I ran, not knowing where I was going, the tears I had been holding back for so long, finally streaming down my face. The next few days were a blur of numb, quiet pain. He returned to work, his demeanor colder, more distant than ever. He treated me with a polite, professional detachment that was more painful than any angry outburst would have been. I, in turn, did my job. My face a mask of calm efficiency, my heart a shattered mess. The dynamic between us had changed. The easy friendship we had been building was gone, replaced by a thick, uncomfortable tension. I continued to care for him, bringing him his coffee, making sure he ate, my actions small, silent gestures of a love he so clearly didn't want. And he continued to push me away, his rejection a constant, dull ache in my chest. My contract at Star was nearing its end. A year ago, I would have been counting down the days, eager to escape. Now, the thought of leaving, of not seeing him every day, was unbearable. I knew it was foolish, that I was just setting myself up for more pain. But I couldn't help it. I decided to stay, to keep fighting for a love that was probably, definitely, a lost cause. He wasn't surprised when I renewed my contract. He didn't say anything, but I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Relief, resignation. I couldn't be sure. And so, the days turned into weeks, the weeks into months, our strange, painful dance continuing. I loved him from afar, and he kept me at arm's length. I was trapped in a cycle of hope and despair, my heart a willing prisoner of my unrequited love. Then, one afternoon, she walked into the office, the woman from the photograph, Hannah. She was even more beautiful in person, with a confidence and an elegance that made me feel small and plain in comparison. She walked right past my desk without a second glance and knocked on his office door. "Excuse me," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Do you have an appointment?" She turned to me, a cool, appraising look in her eyes. "Just tell him Hannah is here," she said, her voice dripping with an easy confidence. "He'll see me." I did as she asked, my heart a leaden weight in my chest. When I said her name, his face lit up with a joy so pure, so unadulterated, that it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. "Let her in," he said, his voice full of an eager warmth I had never heard before. She was in his office for over an hour. When they came out, her arm was linked through his, her head resting on his shoulder. He was smiling, a real, genuine smile that reached his eyes. He didn't even look at me as they walked past. His entire world narrowed down to the woman beside him. In that moment, I knew I had lost. I had spent a year loving a man who was never mine to begin with, and now the rightful owner had come to claim him. My heart didn't just break, it shattered. The image of them together, so happy, so perfectly matched, burned itself into my mind. I felt a suffocating wave of despair wash over me. I needed to know for sure. I needed to hear it from someone else. I went to Alex's office, my feet moving as if in a dream. "Alex, can I talk to you for a second?" He looked up, his usual cheerful expression fading when he saw my face. "Blair, come in." "What's wrong?" "The woman who was just here, Hannah," I began, my voice trembling. Is she the one he loves?" Alex sighed, a look of deep sympathy in his eyes. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes, Blair, that's her. I didn't expect her to show up here. I'm so sorry. I see, I whispered, the last flickering ember of hope in my heart extinguishing. I left the office like a zombie, wandering aimlessly through the bustling city streets. The world around me was a blur of noise and color, but all I could feel was a vast, empty numbness. I had spent so long caring for him, loving him, hoping that one day he would see me. And for what? To watch him walk away with the woman who had broken his heart without a single backward glance. I laughed, a bitter, broken sound that drew strange looks from passers-by. How could I have been so stupid? My phone rang, pulling me from my daze. It was Chloe. Hey, where are you? I've been waiting for you. Sorry, Chloe, I said, my voice flat and lifeless. Something came up. You go on without me. Blair, what's wrong? You don't sound like yourself. I'm fine, I lied, just tired. I'll see you tomorrow. I hung up before she could ask any more questions. I found a bench by the river and just sat there, watching the water flow by, as empty and desolate as my own heart. I knew in that moment that I had to let him go. But how? How do you stop loving someone who has become the very air you breathe? Meanwhile, in a quiet bar across town, Nam was having a very different conversation. He was sitting opposite Alex, a serious expression on his face. So, you and Hannah are back together? Alex asked, his voice carefully neutral. We are, Nam confirmed. She broke up with the other guy. She wants to give us another chance. Alex took a long sip of his beer. And what about Blair? He asked, his gaze steady. Does she deserve to be treated like this? I never asked her to love me, Nam said, his voice defensive. I told her from the beginning where I stood. She's the one who chose to stay. Because she loves you, you idiot, Alex said, his patience finally snapping. She loves you enough to put up with all your crap, to take care of you when you're at your lowest, to hope for a future that you've made perfectly clear will never happen. Do you have any idea how much she's hurting right now? Nam fell silent, a flicker of guilt in his eyes. I've known Blair for a while now, Alex continued, his voice softer. And she's a lot like you know, stubborn, loyal. When you were a wreck after Hannah left, I was the one who asked Blair to help you. I thought maybe she could be the one to make you happy. I never wanted to see her get hurt. He leaned forward, his expression earnest. Nam, we've been friends for a long time. You're a good man, but you're blind when it comes to Hannah. And if Blair keeps loving you, she's only going to suffer. If you don't love her, then for God's sake, be a man and tell her. Crush her hope completely. Don't let her waste another minute of her life on you. Alex's words hit Nam with the force of a physical blow. He knew, deep down, that his friend was right. He had been selfish, stringing Blair along, taking her love and her care for granted, while he pined for another woman. He had to end it. He had to set her free. He spent the next week wrestling with his decision, the guilt eating away at him. He watched her from afar, saw the forced brightness of her smile, the new sadness in her eyes. He knew he was the cause of that sadness, and the knowledge was a heavy weight on his soul. Finally, he knew what he had to do. He sent her a text. Can we meet this afternoon? There's something I need to talk to you about. My heart leaped when I saw his name on my screen. It was the first time he had ever initiated contact outside of work. A foolish, treacherous hope bloomed in my chest. Maybe he had changed his mind. Maybe he was going to tell me that he had chosen me. I was having lunch with Chloe when the text came through, and I couldn't hide the sudden, idiotic grin that spread across my face. "What are you smiling about like a lunatic?" Chloe asked, raising an eyebrow. "Nothing," I said, trying to act casual. "Come on, eat up. We're going to be late." The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of nervous anticipation. I felt like I was floating on a cloud of pure, unadulterated hope. We met at a park near the office, a beautiful, serene place with a large, willow-fringed lake. The late afternoon sun cast a golden glow over everything. It was a perfect, romantic setting. We sat on a bench, and for a long time, he was silent, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. "What did you want to talk to me about?" I asked finally, my voice soft. He turned to me then, his expression somber. "Blair," he began, his voice low and steady. I want to thank you for your feelings for me, but I have to be honest with you. I don't love you. I will never love you. The only woman I will ever love, the only woman I will ever marry, is Hannah. We're back together now, and I'm very happy. I don't want you to waste any more of your time on me. You deserve someone better, someone who can love you back." Each word was a hammer blow, shattering my fragile hope into a million tiny pieces. I stared at him, my vision blurring with unshed tears. Is that what you really think?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "Don't you see? We're the same, you and I. We're both just chasing a love that hurts us. You chase yours, I chase mine. Why are you asking me to stop?" "Because I'm a man," he said, his voice firm, "and because she loves me back. With you, it's just one-sided. Let it go, Blair. Let me go. Then let nature take its course," I said, a strange, defiant strength rising up from the depths of my pain. "You don't need to worry about me. If my heart gets broken, if I suffer, that's my choice. Let's just go on as we have been. You chase your love, and I'll chase mine. Okay?" He stared at me, a mixture of frustration and a grudging respect in his eyes. I was more stubborn, more resilient than he had ever given me credit for. He knew, in that moment, that he couldn't force me to do anything. "Is there anything else?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "If not, I think I'd like to take a walk." He didn't say anything, just stood up and walked beside me in a heavy, suffocating silence. The beautiful, romantic park now felt like a prison. We were walking by the lake when, suddenly, I stopped. My body went rigid, my breath catching in my throat. He followed my gaze, and I saw his own body tense, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. There, on a bench not 50 feet away, was Hannah, and she was not alone. She was leaning against another man, her head on his shoulder, a look of blissful contentment on her face. They looked happy, in love. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The man I loved was in love with a woman who was in love with someone else. The irony was so bitter, so cruel, that I almost laughed. Nam's face was a mask of thunderous, incredulous rage. He started to walk towards them, a storm gathering in his eyes. He strode up to the bench and pulled Hannah to her feet. "Hannah," he said, his voice a low, dangerous growl. "What is the meaning of this? What are you doing with him?" She wouldn't look at him, her face pale with guilt. The other man stood up, a smug, triumphant smirk on his face. "Hello, Nam," he said, his voice dripping with condescending pity. "As you can see, Hannah and I have reconciled. It's a shame, really. She comes running to you when she's sad, but when she's happy, she comes back to me." "It's true, Nam," Hannah whispered, finally looking at him, her eyes full of a crocodile tear-filled regret. "We can't be apart. I'm sorry for for leading you on." I could see the moment his heart broke. It was a visible, physical thing, a shuddering of his entire being. He looked destroyed. "You came alone?" the other man sneered, clapping Nam on the shoulder in a gesture of mock sympathy. Poor guy. In that moment, a strange, protective instinct washed over me. I couldn't bear to see him so humiliated, so broken. I walked over and stood beside him, linking my arm through his. He looked at me, a flicker of surprise in his pain-filled eyes. He recovered quickly, his arm wrapping around my waist, pulling me close. "I'm not alone," he said, his voice surprisingly steady. "I'm here with my girlfriend." I stared at him, my heart doing a frantic somersault in my chest. "Girlfriend?" The other man laughed, a harsh, disbelieving sound. "Really? You two don't exactly look like a couple. Are you sure you're not just pretending?" Nam didn't say a word. He just looked down at me, his eyes dark and intense. And then he lowered his head and kissed me. Right there, in the middle of the crowded park, he kissed me. It was a kiss born of rage and pain and a desperate, gut-wrenching humiliation. He poured all of his shattered pride, all of his broken-hearted fury into that kiss. And I, like a fool, let him. I stood there, my eyes closed, and let him use me, my own heart breaking in silent sympathy for his. When he finally pulled away, there were tears streaming down my face. The ride back was a blur of suffocating silence. He drove with a reckless speed, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, his face a mask of stone. He didn't apologize, didn't explain, didn't even look at me. It was as if I wasn't there. In his mind, he was still back in that park, his world shattered by the one woman he thought he could trust. And I was just collateral damage. He pulled up in front of a loud, flashy bar in the heart of the city's nightlife district. The thumping bass of the music vibrated through the car. "I'm tired," I said, my voice a small, pleading whisper. "Can we just go home?" "You can go if you want," he snapped, his voice rough with a barely contained rage. He got out of the car, slamming the door behind him. "Just don't bother me." I watched him stride towards the entrance, a solitary wounded animal seeking solace in the darkness. And I knew, with a sinking heart, that I couldn't leave him. Not like this. I sighed, a sound of pure, weary resignation, and followed him inside. The bar was a chaotic assault on the senses. Flashing lights, sweaty bodies, music so loud it felt like a physical force. He found a secluded booth in the back, away from the worst of the crowd, and I slid in opposite him. He ordered a bottle of the strongest whiskey they had, and a few appetizers, his movements sharp and angry. "Order whatever you want," he said, not looking at me. He poured himself a glass and downed it in one go, the amber liquid burning a trail down his throat. He poured another, his eyes staring into the middle distance, a tempest of pain and betrayal raging within them. I just sat there, watching him, my own heart a dull, aching void. After a few minutes of his silent, self-destructive drinking, I reached for the bottle and poured a glass for myself. He looked at me then, his eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" he demanded. I didn't say a word. I just lifted the glass to my lips and drank, the fiery liquid searing my throat. It was a foolish, childish act of solidarity, but in that moment, it felt like the only thing I could do. "Stop it," he growled, his voice laced with a strange, protective anger. "This isn't for you." "And why not?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. I looked him straight in the eye, all the pain and hurt of the past year, finally bubbling to the surface. "Aren't we the same? Aren't we both just failures in love?" He stared at me, a flicker of surprise in his drunken haze. He had always seen me as a naive, lovesick girl, a child playing at grown-up emotions. But the woman sitting opposite him now, her eyes full of a quiet, profound sadness that mirrored his own. She was not a child. She was a woman who had been hurt, deeply and repeatedly, and who was still, somehow, sitting here with him. He looked away, a wave of guilt washing over him. He had used me, kissed me to save his own pathetic pride, and then treated me with a cold, dismissive cruelty. And yet, here I was. "You've grown up," he muttered, more to himself than to me. "You know what you're doing." "Yes," I said softly, "I do." He continued to drink, and I continued to watch him, my own glass untouched after that first defiant drink. I had to stay sober. Someone had to get him home. "You know," he slurred, his words thick with alcohol and self-loathing, "I'm a real bastard, aren't I? I'm pathetic. I'm still in love with a woman who cheated on me, who threw me away like I was nothing. And I used you. I used you to hurt her. Why? Why do you stay? Why don't you just leave me alone?" His words were like salt in my already gaping wounds, but I didn't flinch. I just looked at him, my heart aching with a love that was so deep, so unconditional, it defied all logic. "Because I love you," I whispered. The words so quiet, I wasn't sure he heard them, but he did. He looked up at me, his eyes full of a drunken, confused pain. "Then you're a fool," he said, and went back to his drink. The rest of the night passed in a blur of silent, shared misery. He drank until he could barely stand, and I waited, a patient, solitary guardian in his storm of self-destruction. Somehow, I managed to get him out of the bar and into a taxi. He was a dead weight against me, his head lolling on my shoulder, muttering her name in his sleep. "Hannah, always Hannah." I got him back to his apartment and wrestled him onto his bed. I took off his shoes, loosened his tie, and covered him with a blanket. I was about to leave when he started to thrash in his sleep, his face contorted in a pained grimace. He was having a nightmare. I couldn't just leave him. I went to the kitchen and made him a glass of honey water to help with the hangover I knew he would have in the morning. When I came back, he was sitting up, his eyes bleary, a lost, confused look on his face. He saw me and seemed to sober up a little. "What time is it?" he mumbled. "A little after 1, I said softly. "You're awake. Good. I'm going home now." I turned to leave, but his hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. "Don't go," he whispered, his voice a raw, desperate plea. I froze, my back to him, my heart doing a painful, hopeful flip. I stood there for a long moment, then gently tried to pull my hand away. "You're still drunk, Nam. You should get some rest." I took a step towards the door, but he was out of the bed in an instant. His movements surprisingly fast for someone so intoxicated. He cornered me against the wall, his hands planting on either side of my head, trapping me. He was so close I could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell the whiskey on his breath. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a wild bird trapped in a cage. "Let me go," I whispered, my voice trembling. He ignored me, his gaze intense, searching. He leaned in closer, his lips just inches from mine. "I'm sorry," he breathed, and then he kissed me. It was different from the kiss in the park. That one had been born of anger and pride. This was something else entirely. It was slow and deep, and full of a desperate, confusing hunger. It was a kiss that spoke of loneliness and pain, and a desperate need for comfort. It was the kiss of a man who was lost, and who was reaching for the only solid thing in his turbulent world. And I, like the fool I was, let him. I kissed him back, my own loneliness, my own desperate love, rising up to meet his. For a dizzying, terrifying moment, I let myself believe that this was real, that he was kissing me, Blair, not a substitute for the woman who had broken his heart. Then, reality came crashing back in. I remembered who he was, who I was, who he loved. And I remembered that this was all a lie. Slap. The sound echoed in the silent room. I had pushed him away, my hands stinging, my eyes blazing with a furious, heartbroken betrayal. "You bastard," I whispered, the words laced with all the pain he had ever caused me. It was the first time I had ever spoken to him with such contempt. I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Shock? Hurt? It was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a dark, drunken haze. "You said you loved me," he slurred, his voice dangerously low. He grabbed my wrists, his grip like steel, and pulled me back against the wall. "You said you'd do anything for me. Isn't this what you wanted?" He was being cruel, deliberately, lashing out at me because he was in pain. He wanted to hurt me, to make me feel as broken as he did. And in that moment, something inside me just broke. The fight went out of me, replaced by a wave of weary, hopeless resignation. What was the point of fighting? I loved him, and this, perhaps, was the only way I would ever have him. I looked at him, the tears I had been holding back for so long finally spilling over, tracing silent paths down my cheeks. And I gave him the only answer I had left: silence. He saw my tears, saw the surrender in my eyes, and he knew. He leaned in and kissed me again, a desperate, hungry kiss that tasted of whiskey and tears. It was a kiss of anger, and of grief, and of a deep, profound loneliness that mirrored my own. And that night, in a haze of alcohol and heartbreak, I gave him the one thing I had left to give. I became his, completely and utterly, and I knew, with a certainty that settled in my bones like a cold, hard stone, that I would regret it for the rest of my life. The morning sun streamed through the blinds, a cruel reminder of a new day. I woke up to an empty bed. The events of the previous night came rushing back, a tidal wave of shame and regret. I felt a hollow ache in the pit of my stomach, a profound sense of self-loathing. I heard the shower running in the adjoining bathroom. He was awake. My heart started to pound, a frantic, panicked rhythm. What would I say to him? What would he say to me? I quickly dressed, my movements clumsy and rushed. I just had to get out of there before he came out, before I had to face the awkward, humiliating morning after. The bathroom door opened, and he stepped out, a towel wrapped around his waist, his hair damp. He stopped short when he saw me, a look of surprise, then a deep, profound regret crossing his face. "Blair," he began, his voice rough. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice flat and emotionless. I couldn't look at him. "Don't worry, you don't have to say anything. Let me drive you home," he said, his voice quiet. I finally looked at him then, and a bitter, humorless smile touched my lips. "Don't," I said, my voice laced with a weary scorn. "Don't you dare start acting like you care. Don't pity me. Just let me keep what's left of my dignity." He flinched, as if I'd slapped him. "Blair, I'm sorry. Last night." "Don't you dare say you'll take responsibility," I interrupted, my voice rising with a sudden, fierce anger. "I don't need your charity. Just think of it as a one-night stand. The party's over. We go our separate ways. That's how it works in the real world, isn't it?" I turned and walked out, not waiting for a reply. I could feel his eyes on me, a heavy, suffocating weight. I walked out of his apartment building and into the bright, unforgiving morning, feeling like a ghost. I felt used, dirty. I had given myself to a man who didn't love me, A man who had used my body to exorcise the ghost of another woman. And I had let him. That was the worst part. I had let him. Back in his apartment, Nam sank onto the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. A wave of self-disgust, so powerful it almost made him sick, washed over him. What had he done? He had taken something precious from her, something she had been saving, and he had treated it like it was nothing. He had hurt her in the cruelest, most intimate way possible. And for what? Because he was hurting? Because he was drunk? There was no excuse. He was a monster. He reached for his phone, his fingers trembling, and called me. It went straight to voicemail. He called again and again and again, but I didn't answer. The next week was a living hell. I quit my job at Star, emailing my resignation without a word of explanation. I couldn't face him. I couldn't face anyone. I locked myself in my room, refusing to see or talk to anyone, not even Chloe. He called and texted relentlessly, his messages a desperate mix of apologies and pleas to see me. I ignored them all. The silence, I knew, would be more painful for him than any angry words I could have thrown at him. I was numb, adrift in a sea of shame and self-loathing. And as the days turned into a week, then two, a new, terrifying reality began to dawn on me. I had missed my period. At first, I told myself it was just stress. But as another week went by, and another, the gnawing, terrifying suspicion grew into a certainty. I was pregnant. Pregnant with the child of a man who didn't love me, a man I never wanted to see again. The news, when I finally confirmed it with a home pregnancy test, didn't bring joy or fear or any of the emotions a woman is supposed to feel. It just brought a strange, profound emptiness. This child, this tiny, innocent life growing inside me, was the product of my own foolish, desperate love, a love that had brought me nothing but pain. And yet, as I stared at the two pink lines on the plastic stick, something inside me shifted. A tiny, fierce flicker of something. Protection. Love. This child was mine. Mine and mine alone. And I would protect it. I would love it. And I would raise it, far away from the man who was its father. I knew what I had to do. I booked a one-way ticket to France, where my aunt lived. I would go there, have my baby, and start a new life. A life where Nam and the pain he had caused me was nothing but a distant, faded memory. Nam, meanwhile, was going out of his mind. I had disappeared, vanished without a trace. He had gone to my house, but my parents had told him I was away, traveling. They wouldn't tell him where. He had called Chloe, but she had refused to speak to him. He was completely cut off, left alone with his guilt and his growing, desperate fear. He had lost me. He had driven away the one person who had ever truly, unconditionally loved him, and he didn't know how to get me back. The weeks without me were a revelation. He realized, with a clarity that was both terrifying and profound, that the pain he felt at my absence was 1,000 times worse than the pain he had felt when Hannah left him. He missed me, not just my presence, not just my care. He missed me, my smile, my laugh, my stubbornness, my unwavering, unconditional love. He had been a fool, a blind, arrogant fool. He had been so obsessed with a woman who had never truly loved him that he had failed to see the real, precious love that was right in front of him all along. He was in love with me. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow. He was in love with Blair Tran, and he had destroyed any chance he ever had of being with her. He threw himself into his work, trying to numb the ache in his chest, but my ghost was everywhere. In his office, in his apartment, in his head. He started drinking again, not to forget Hannah, but to forget me. But it didn't work. Nothing worked. One evening, he came home to find a surprise visitor waiting for him. Hannah. She was standing at his door, her face tear-streaked, a desperate, pleading look in her eyes. "Nam," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry. He cheated on me. I was a fool to ever leave you. Please take me back." A year ago, those words would have been music to his ears. He would have taken her in his arms, forgiven her instantly, and thanked God for her return. But now he felt nothing. The love he had once felt for her was gone, replaced by a cold, weary indifference. "You should go, Hannah," he said, his voice flat. "No, please, Nam," she sobbed, throwing her arms around him. "Don't do this. I love you. I've always loved you." He gently but firmly removed her arms from around his neck. "No, you don't," he said, his voice devoid of all emotion. "You love the idea of me. You love having me as a safety net. But you don't love me. And I don't love you anymore." He opened his door and went inside, closing it softly in her face, leaving her sobbing in the hallway. He leaned against the door, a strange, profound sense of peace washing over him. It was finally, truly over. He was free, but he had never felt more alone. I, on the other hand, was starting to feel something. The numbness was beginning to fade, replaced by a fierce, protective love for the child growing inside me. I was still hurt, still broken, but I had a purpose now, a reason to be strong. I came back from France after a few months, my belly just beginning to show. I didn't want to hide anymore. This was my reality, and I would face it with my head held high. I planned to move to a quiet coastal town, open a small boutique, and raise my child in peace. I was walking down the street one afternoon, my mind on my future, when I saw him. He was parked across the street, just watching me. He looked thinner, his face drawn and tired. There were dark circles under his eyes. Our eyes met across the busy street, and in that moment, the world seemed to stop. I saw a look in his eyes I had never seen before, a raw, desperate, heartbreaking longing. He got out of the car and started to walk towards me, his eyes never leaving mine. My heart started to pound, a frantic, panicked rhythm. I turned and fled, my only thought to get away from him, to protect myself, to protect my child. He didn't follow me, but I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to my very core, that this was not over. He had found me, and he was not going to let me go. The next day, I was packing the last of my things for the move to the coast when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello, Blair, it's Hannah." My blood ran cold. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice tight. I need to talk to you," she said, her voice surprisingly subdued. "Can we meet?" Against my better judgment, I agreed. A part of me, the foolish, self-destructive part, needed to see her, to face the woman who had caused me so much pain. But I wasn't going alone. I called Chloe. "She wants to meet me," I told her, my voice a low, nervous whisper. "That witch," Chloe seethed. "Don't go. You don't owe her anything." "I have to," I said. "But will you come with me? Just be there in case I need you." "Of course," she said without hesitation. "I'll be right behind you, and I'll be recording everything." We met at a quiet, out-of-the-way cafe. I chose a secluded table in the back, and Chloe sat at a nearby table, her face hidden behind a newspaper, her phone's recorder on. Hannah arrived a few minutes later. She looked different. The confident, arrogant woman I had seen in the office was gone, replaced by someone who looked tired and sad and a little bit broken. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, not looking me in the eye. "Why are you here, Hannah?" I asked, my voice cold. She took a deep breath. I came to ask you about Nam," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "Something happened between you two, didn't it?" Her question was a direct hit, but I kept my face a mask of cool indifference. "I don't know what you're talking about. Please, Blair," she said, her voice cracking. "He's different. He's not the man I knew. He's empty. And it's because of you. I know he loves you. Why? Why did you leave him?" Her words were so full of a twisted, self-serving jealousy that I almost laughed. "He loves me," I said, my voice dripping with scorn. "That's rich, coming from you, the woman he spent a year pining for, the woman who came back and claimed him as if he were a piece of property. You want to know why I left? I left because I have self-respect, something you clearly know nothing about. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a life to live, a life that, from now on, will not include either of you." I stood up and walked out, leaving her sitting there, her face a mask of shocked disbelief. As Chloe and I were leaving, my phone rang again. It was Nam. "Blair, please. We need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about," I said, and hung up. I was done. Truly, finally done. I was going to move to the coast, have my baby, and forget that either of them ever existed. But life, it seems, had other plans. That evening, as I was leaving my house to say a final goodbye to Chloe, he was there, waiting for me. He had parked his car down the street and was leaning against it, his face etched with a desperate, heartbreaking plea. "Blair," he said, his voice a raw whisper, "please, don't go." "It's too late, Nam," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm leaving, and there's nothing you can do to stop me." I turned to walk away, but he was in front of me in an instant, his hands on my shoulders, his eyes boring into mine. "I love you," he said, the words a desperate, ragged torrent. I was a fool, a blind, arrogant fool. I was so obsessed with a ghost that I didn't see the real, beautiful, incredible woman who was right in front of me all along. "I love you, Blair, and I know you love me too. Please, please give me another chance." His words, the words I had longed to hear for so long, were now just salt in a wound that would never heal. "No," I whispered, the tears I had been holding back for so long finally spilling over. "I can't. You hurt me too much. I can't go back." "I know I hurt you," he said, his own eyes filling with tears, "and I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you, if you'll let me. I know about Hannah. I know what she said to you. Chloe, she sent me the recording. I know everything, and it doesn't matter. None of it matters. The only thing that matters is you." He pulled me into his arms, his embrace a desperate, pleading cage. "I can't live without you, Blair," he whispered into my hair. "I've tried, and I can't. Please, please don't leave me." I stood there, my body rigid, my heart a chaotic war of love and pain, of hope and despair. A part of me, the foolish, hopelessly romantic part, wanted to give in, to believe him, to let him love me. But the other part, the part that was scarred and broken, screamed at me to run, to protect myself, to never let him hurt me again. "It's not just about us anymore, Nam," I whispered, my voice thick with unshed tears. There's someone else." He pulled back, a look of pure, unadulterated devastation on his face. "Someone else?" he whispered, his voice cracking. You've met someone else?" I looked at him, at the man I had loved for so long, the man who was the father of my child, and I knew, in that moment, that I couldn't lie. Not about this. I took his hand, his large, warm hand, and placed it on my still flat stomach. Yes, I said, my voice a soft, steady whisper. I've fallen in love with someone else. Our child. He stared at me, his eyes wide with a dawning, incredulous joy. He looked down at my stomach, then back up at me, his face a mask of disbelief. Our child, he stammered. You're pregnant? I nodded, a small, watery smile on my lips. Yes, I said. You're going to be a father. The world seemed to stop. He just stood there, his hand on my belly, his face a chaotic mix of shock and joy, and a love so profound, so overwhelming, it took my breath away. He sank to his knees on the sidewalk, his arms wrapping around my waist, his face pressing against my stomach. A baby, he whispered, his voice thick with a raw, unadulterated emotion. Our baby. He looked up at me, his eyes shining with tears. Thank you, he breathed. Oh, Blair, thank you. He stood up and pulled me into his arms, a hug so full of love and relief, and a desperate, heartbreaking gratitude that it melted the last of the ice around my heart. I love you, he whispered, his lips against my hair. I love you so much, and I will love our child with every fiber of my being. Marry me, Blair, please, marry me, and let me spend the rest of my life proving to you how much I love you. And I, like the fool I was, the fool I had always been, looked up at him, at the man who had broken my heart, and then, somehow, put it back together again, and I said the only word that had ever truly mattered. Yes. The wedding was a small, intimate affair, just our families and a few close friends. I wore a simple, elegant white dress that skimmed my growing belly, and he never once took his eyes off me. He looked at me as if I were the sun and the moon and all the stars in the sky. Hannah, I heard, had gone back to France, a broken woman who had lost everything. Albert, my petty, vindictive ex, had been fired from his job and was now facing financial ruin. His greed and arrogance had finally caught up with him. And Chloe? She was now the head designer at Star, and she and Alex were the company's newest and cutest power couple. As for me, I had never been happier. My life was not the one I had planned, but it was so much better. I had a man who loved me, a beautiful baby on the way, and a future that was brighter than I had ever dared to dream. One night, as we were lying in bed, his arms wrapped around me, his hand resting on my belly, he whispered in my ear, "Do you believe in fate, my love?" I smiled into the darkness. "I don't know," I said. "Do you?" "I do," he said, his voice a low, contented murmur. "They say that what's meant to be will always find a way. And you, my beautiful, stubborn, incredible Blair, you are my destiny. You and our child. You are my everything." He kissed me then, a slow, deep kiss, full of all the love and pain and joy that had brought us to this moment. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my soul, that he was right. We were fate. We were destiny. We were inevitable. And our love story, with all of its twists and turns, its heartbreak and its healing, was finally, truly just beginning.